As I said, I'd start a little earlier than 7:30. I think I originally had it scheduled. Well, 6:15 is a little earlier than 7:30. I've just decided I'm watching what's going on right now. I'm watching some of the newscast. I've got plenty of information I can probably share with latest things that have occurred in the last, 24 to 36 hours. And also, again, polling related data. So I figured I'd just start early. And then maybe I can cycle through this stuff a few times. We can chat. For anybody who wants to start early with a debate, like significantly early. I don't know. This kind of stuff is like it's like my Super Bowl. So one thing I wanted to point off first and foremost, first off, you'll see underneath here, I've got the Bitcoin ticker. I actually have this theory, and I've said it multiple times. I think if Donald Trump is winning this debate, that we go up. And Bitcoin price goes up. And I think if Kamala Harris is winning this debate, the Bitcoin price goes down. And I think we'll have that in real time. And I think it'll be insightful for you guys to be able to see that happen as we're going through it. So again, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be a good plan. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about. So it might look scary at first glance that Kamala Harris is up 1.1 across the national polling average. But what's exciting about this is two of the recent polls that are like better pollers, Rasmussen, somebody say that's far right, but they usually are pretty close. They had Trump up by one, and then also New York Times, Siena, had Trump up by one in their latest poll too. And these are likely verified or likely voters. My bad. Not just registered voters like the RV status. So these are like more reputable polls. And the fact that the New York Times, of all publications, is showing Trump leading in one of the latest polls is shocking. Also, the Harvard Harris shows a dead tie between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. That's wild, too. I'm not going to lie. It's amazing to think of anything coming from Harvard that would show a tie between Trump and Kamala Harris. And then again, Rasmussen was up by one, too. Also, why is this so important? Because this day in history, thank you, Jason W. You the man too, brother. In September 10th of 2020, when Trump was running up against Biden, Biden was winning by 7.5. Harris is winning by 1.1. And it looks like that could shift very quickly. Then in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, when Trump won, Hillary had a 2.7 lead and Trump beat her. So it's just getting to the point where it's like, okay, we're starting to see that history is indicating right now, at least right now, before the debate, that Trump is probably going to win. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. If we look at the poly market, the odds 6 hours ago were that Trump was going to win by 8% for the election forecast. So 8%. That's a huge number. Again, the betting markets can change though. They're just a good real-time indicator of consensus. But again, other ones look good too. This interactive polls, it shows Focal Data HQ MRP model, and right here, their MRP model shows that Republicans will have 212 seats in the House, 223 for the Democrats. That's probably not too crazy. And then Electoral College, we'd see a 291 for Trump, 247 for Harris. That would be a nice win with Trump taking Carolina, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And I think he could take those. I think he could even take Arizona if the election is fair. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here for them to do really good. And I think we'll just roll into some other stuff here. Also, I'll be in a little bit here. I'll be pulling up in between, and we'll probably be watching NBC News. This is the view from the left, right? You're going to have my commentary from the right, or conservative right, like more right, let's just be honest, as of late. I did vote for Joe Biden, guys, if you don't know who I am, but I am voting for Trump very clearly right now. I'm not for communism and socialism, and I want capitalism and meritocracy to prevail, and I believe in freedom of speech, so it's just core beliefs in my mind that I just can't get around. We're already seeing Bitcoin starting to pop here. Again, on the chart down below, that's looking exciting. I'll probably jump to commentary just for a little bit and let these guys talk. And then here in a second, I'll come back and we'll probably continue with a number of facts and news events that have come up recently. but I'm probably just going to let NBC play some audio for a little bit here.
Mics to be muted, asked for there not
let me
to be
switch to my headset
audience,
too, which I have on.
Look, if you talk to some Democratic strategists, they believe that the
if you guys
mics
have
being
questions
muted
too,
actually
Jason,
has helped
welcome.
Trump to
David,
look more
welcome.
presidential.
Hope Americans
So what
vote
will
Trump.
we
Me
see
too, brother.
tonight? If there's a whole
Concord,
lot of
good
crosstalk,
afternoon.
Tom,
Good
I'll be
afternoon,
curious to see if they
Concord.
actually unmute those microphones so that we can hear what they're saying. In terms of it being easier.
And again, well, I'm just going to keep playing this, but I'm going to mute it.
I would not.
So again, I have a conservative bias. I have switched sides very deliberately in the last year. So when you're looking at me, you can remember that. I do try and play down the middle, though. What I think can happen, and then I talk about the probabilities of happening, and I do it through my own conservative lens, which I believe is a very well-educated one, and that's unbiased when I have to be, which is around money. If you guys don't know who I am, my handle is micro to macro, and I talk daily with a market open, a market close, and then about Bitcoin. I talk daily about what's going on in the stock market, the macroeconomic and geopolitical environments of the world. We talk about fundamentals for companies. We talk about financials, and then we also talk about technical analysis. And I try and give my take on all the big indices and commodities and dollar and bond markets and inversions and all this other stuff. I try and take that all and come up with a picture every day on what the market is doing and what direction it's heading in. And I think I do a pretty good job. I'm not a perfect human being, but I think I'm probably one of the better ones. So if you guys are interested in that, ring that little bell, hit the like, and check it out. And I think you'll like what you see. But let's listen to these guys for a few minutes here and see what they have to say.
About where exactly he's.
Oh, and do that thing, realizing that they're like a 9 to 10 to 1 bias. Right. Very biased towards the left.
Flip-flops that she's had from when she was a candidate back in 2019 until becoming the vice presidential nominee with Joe Biden, and now, of course, the sitting vice president. And then the big one, Tom. Will she lay out for voters how a Harris administration would be different from a Biden administration? This may be her biggest challenge because she can't completely distance herself from the Biden agenda. She is a part of the administration, but a win, if you talk to her allies, is for her to make a case, create a vision in which she talks about the ways in which things would look different under a Harris administration, Tom.
Kristen Welker, I know we're going to be hearing from you all night long. We appreciate you joining our special coverage. For more on what we can expect from both candidates tonight, I want to bring in our political pros. Senator Claire McCaskill, who represented the great state of Missouri and is now an NBC News political analyst. Tricia McLaughlin, she's a former senior advisor and communications director on the Vivek Ramaswamy campaign. Hogan Gidley, former White House principal.
We like Vivek.
During the Trump administration, and Michael Starr Hopkins, a Democratic strategist and former staffer on the Clinton and Obama campaigns. We thank you all for being here. Senator McCaskill, I'm going to
We'll see how stacked the deck is here real quick. We'll get to know these people real fast.
Start with you. So we've done one, if you're the Harris team, you've done one big interview with CNN, right? Since you got to the top of the ticket. No town halls, a lot of campaigning, but no unscripted moments. I got to think the pressure is on for her because this is the first time that Americans are going to have to see her really full frontal without any script.
Yeah, I think she'll do more interviews.
I hope we don't see Kamala Harris full frontal. I don't know about you guys.
I don't think the lack of a script is
Didn't that one mayor from Chicago get to, though? Sorry, my bad.
the problem for her. Well, it's the best training ground for not having a script is a courtroom. Speaking as someone who did exactly what she did for many years, there is no script in the courtroom. You don't know what your witnesses are going to say. You don't know how the judge is going to rule. You don't know when you have to pivot. You don't know when you're going to.
Remember, Kamala Harris is really good at imprisoning black people and Hispanic people and other minorities for things like marijuana laws, and then keeping them in there for a long time, and then accusing, like knowing that there's evidence that would basically set a person free who is on death row, and then not bringing forth that evidence to save that person's life. They did get saved, but again, just not really great prosecuting career, in my opinion.
Going to have to adjust to something on the fly.
Yeah.
She knows how to do this. I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think the bigger problem is how she can be dismissive of him.
Now, the market is going up. Bitcoin's going up. This is an interesting start.
And make him smaller on the stage and make herself stronger.
You know, Tricia, I want to show you the latest national poll we have, which was the New York Times Siena poll, right? I'll put this up for our viewers here. And the survey here, and the Pew Research Center as well, you can see how deadlocked this race is. Both have this race essentially a dead heat, either well within the margin of error.
I'm ready, Ryan.
And yet there's a very different debate stage from the one Trump faced in June. Now he's the older candidate. He's facing someone who has more energy, someone he's never debated before. How do you think that throws him off his game?
Well, the issue of the age, I understand that that's this new attack attack line, but this is a guy who weeks ago was just shot in the ear and then got up and said, fight, 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 and then went on to go every night, long days, long nights, to the Republican National Convention. I mean, I think that he really shows some energy. I thought the crosstabs, though, of those
Yeah, I think that was a fucking stupid question, and I think she's spot on.
polls were very interesting. It actually showed that only a third of Americans that think he's too far right versus half of Americans think Kamala Harris is too far left. He is the centrist candidate going into this debate.
Claire, I'm going to let you do the rebuttal on that one.
That's the fact. I mean, listen, he's not a centrist candidate. No. And the point is he's not trying to be a centrist candidate. He's never really reached beyond.
That's complete bullshit. I think he's doing a great job of being a centrist candidate. He's pulling in male blacks like crazy, like nobody's ever done from the Republican Party before. That's not remotely accurate. He's doing just fine. Let me look through chat real quick here. We were running at 1.25x, so we'll stay current too, and I won't comment too much. Let's see. Ryan R says stands for Republicans this year, first time rep. Concord, you can tell they don't like Harris, but acknowledge she is their only vehicle to remain in the seat. They will lie, cheat, and steal whatever it takes to get her across the finish line, man. That's my opinion. Enema? Is that you? Definitely keep an eye on BTC price action during this. It's down underneath, man. And we can see it's already starting off. I put kind of like our starting line, showing the green and the red vertical lines. And we can see we're already doing a little bit better than the red. So this is a good start. We're getting a little bounce heading into it. You guys better vote Trump. Heck yeah, I agree with that, David Chipenda. Totally, man. Concord, Asian markets are opening up too. Ryan Robbins. Yes, the age debate is so stupid and backwards. It is when it comes to Trump. It wasn't when it came to Biden. He was a mess. He was a mess. He literally, I think he fell asleep during the last debate. Master the game. Are you going to be playing live on your channel or logging off before? No, fuck, dude. I'm here the whole time, bro. I'm the whole time. Bobcat Woo. Learn to swim. Yeah, exactly.
His base. And she, on the other hand, I think has a real opportunity to get an edge with independent voters and soft Republicans, people who don't like his foreign policy, don't like his plan for the economy. When you got Goldman Sachs saying that her economic plan is going to be...
Yeah, remember, guys, he has a horrible economic policy. He wants to make it to where manufacturing jobs come back to the United States. How fucking horrible is that? And then at the same time, he wants to make sure illegal immigrants aren't coming into the country and overwhelming Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and everything else in our country while raising the prices of houses. I think that seems fair. I think that seems fair to me. Call me crazy, but I don't think that's a bad idea. He wants to reduce our energy by over 51% within his first year. He wants to embrace innovation. He wants to embrace Bitcoin. He wants to embrace crypto. He wants a Bitcoin stockpile. He wants to help people who want to have children, not only give tax credits for children, but also in vitro fertilization if people need it, because we need more people in this country. We just can't have all of them. We can't have 2-3 million people funneling over the border illegally every year, destabilizing our system. But we can definitely start having families, having more kids here. Again, when you look at the nuance between J.D. Vance and Trump, this is just so much bullshit in here with the narratives they push.
Better for the economy than his, that tells you something.
Hogan, I want to turn to you now, and if we can roll the video of the debate between former President Trump and President Biden. Hogan, I noticed something during this debate, right? So Biden comes out, it's clear he's having a bad night, and at some point, former President Trump realizes this, and he starts to sort of look over at Biden while Biden is answering, and they have the split screen there, right? This was the debate on CNN, and you could see that it's sort of, Trump realizes that Biden's having a very, very bad night, and he sort of controls himself.
Yeah, Ryan R., we're definitely polarized. I already made my choice, but again, I respect other people and their choices. I just want them to make sure that they understand the policies and what choice they're making. I get that everybody comes from a different background and has a different view. I just think a whole bunch of people are getting ready to make a mistake that we can't let them make. And I hope after this, the polarization can go away, because I think having people like Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy, Vivek Balaji, J.D. Vance, and a number of others that are just amazing, like Robert F. Kennedy's previous VP candidate, on your side. You're going to make them accountable. Trump said, "Hey, I just want the economy to do great. I want the United States to be the leader in everything again." And this is the team. He put the team together to make it happen. He was very smart with that. He already tried to run the first business, and it failed because he had the wrong team. He didn't know anybody in Washington. and now he's got the right team. That's my take.
At least in the beginning of the debate. Do you think he's going to be able to control himself in this debate as well?
Such an
if he sees
amazing
opportunities?
team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it's no secret Kamala Harris is going to try to get under.
Yeah, Trump's got an amazing team, and who does Kamala Harris have? She's got fucking dipshit VP Waltz, the communist. Fun guy.
His skin. The job for Donald Trump here
The one who let them burn down Minneapolis. Yay.
is to remind everybody about his record, while Kamala Harris's job is
Tampon Tim.
try to make everyone forget about hers. He needs to stay on message. He needs to expose her for the radical she is. He needs to make sure the American people remember just how successful, how good it was, how you could afford gas and groceries. The border was closed. You had no wars breaking out all over the world. That's his job tonight. I think he's going to have a really good opportunity to do it. But it's pretty clear Kamala Harris has a history of being prepared for these. She's been in office basically for 20 years. She's not new. She's not fresh. She's kind of old at this point in political years for sure. Donald Trump.
Yeah, Kamala Harris has Dick Cheney, the warmonger. And I'm not, these aren't my words. These are their words. That's so exciting. And all we got was all the rest of that team.
Still the newcomer. She'll be ready. She'll have her canned one-liners. She'll have her contrived lines, her story.
Here's the thing. If she comes off as superficial tonight and she lacks substance and she can't dive in and come back with a clear, concise answer to, more complicated things, I think people are going into this thinking she's stupid, and if she proves them right, I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be bad if she can't remain cool. She's already the lady. Not to be sexist, it's just the way it works. She's already the lady, so she's going to be seen probably as the potential of more emotion, right? That's what people are going to think for the most part. Not everybody, but a decent amount. And so she's got to prove that she is emotionally fit for this and that she's intelligent and has good policies that are going to help America. And the problem I have is her policies are shit. They're fucking horrible. They're really bad. Corporate gains taxes increases, unrealized gain taxes, capital gains at 44%. Is that what we were talking about? Now she's switching these things all the time, but just trying to gauge the audience to be able to buy people's votes. But this is just not good it's just not good. It'll crash our economy. I focus on economics. And if we do things to contract the stock market by making companies sell out and debase their stocks and dilute themselves from the things they own, you will crash all the major ETFs, all the big cap tech, all the S&P 500, and then everything else will cascade down with it, and it would be a fucking nightmare. It could be a depression. I'm not even kidding. This is not hyperbole. So we can't let that happen.
Stories that are made up. She'll do all of that because she's done it in the past. She'll use that to try and goad Donald Trump into going down rabbit holes. If he doesn't and sticks to what the American people care about, he's going to have a good night.
Michael, I want to show you one of the crosstabs of the New York Times.
I think Trump has to be good. I think Kamala has to be great, honestly. I think because the betting odds showed that Kamala Harris had a 60-40 advantage over her doing better than Trump. So if people are going into this with a perception of her doing better, I think it's actually her that has to do better. Trump just needs to not be seen as a bully and then showing a beautiful vision of the future. And if he does anything like what he did in his Econ Club speeches, we're set.
Times and CNN College poll we mentioned earlier here. When asked how well voters feel they know the candidates, 28%, almost 3 in 10 said they needed to know more about Kamala Harris. Just 9% said the same about Trump. How does she win this debate but also sort of introduce herself to a large portion of the electorate?
Well, it's one of Donald Trump's biggest problems. He's really squeezed all the juice out of his base, and so he's hardened his numbers. But the problem is he hasn't been able to hit 50%, while Kamala Harris has. And so she still has room to grow. And what she needs to do tonight is, while Donald Trump is going to, try to goad her, try to be really unprofessional and undisciplined, she's got to talk to voters. She's got to remind voters that when Donald Trump was in charge, there were, 20 million Americans who lost their jobs. There was 1 million Americans who died. Donald Trump wanted to slash Medicare, Medicaid.
Yeah, David, that's fair. You're saying that the majority of people get their information like 9-1 or 10-1 on mainstream media or traditional news sources, and so especially the older population, Trump has to do better to be able to get it to where they can see past it, since they're going to be getting messaging that's like the complete opposite. That's an interesting point. That's a fair point.
The ACA, he wanted to, increase our deficit by $8 trillion. These are all things that happened under his administration that I think a lot of Americans have forgotten. And so it's her job to remind them.
Senator McCaskill, the two campaigns agreed on the rules. These mics are going to be muted. The Harris-Walz campaign trying to change that afterwards. How much of an advantage do you?
All right, I'm actually going to so again, Kamala Harris didn't get what you wanted in regard to the mics. We're going to jump over, actually. I want to show you guys Just some other things going on between Trump and Kamala. Give you some kind of the latest news things.
Some weird things.
So Vivek already said, I won't show you this video, but essentially he said, I think he predicted that Biden would get switched out. Biden got switched out. Now he's predicting that if Kamala doesn't do well tonight, which he thinks she probably won't, Trump will probably beat her up a little bit. And he said things could get really strange going forward. He didn't really elaborate on what that means, if they would swap somebody out again, or if the Democrats will try and make some steps, maybe like voter fraud related things, or just like pushing her in as a candidate. He didn't name what he was thinking, but he's got thoughts, right? He's got thoughts about it. I think I got this bookmarked twice. I said in here, it said breaking, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy will travel to Kiev to inform Ukraine that restrictions on use of long-range missiles against Russian territory will be lifted. I think this is fucking stupid. I say this as somebody who was for the Iraq War, that was for Afghanistan, that was for Libya. All these wars that we've done, and then afterwards you realize that they're all wrong, and none of them, they haven't helped our presence in the region at all. Did you know that Iran is the way they are because the United States government helped overthrow a democratic government? Did you know the United States participated in overthrowing Bolsonaro, or whatever his name is, in Brazil in the 2022 election? Openly, the White House, the Army, the FBI, the CIA, all these guys played a part in trying to ensure election integrity and try and prevent him from being an authoritarian. And maybe it's doing something with votes. I don't know. But we got a communist in afterwards, Lula, who is now threatening to censor X and other stuff. And we seem to be having a censoring of free speech in the UK, too. These other ones that are talking with the United States about basically increasing the danger of this war. I don't know if people care anymore, but Russia has over like 1,200, 1,500 live nukes, not to mention all the others. So do we. What happens? What fucking happens if we start a nuclear war? Why would we even want to do this? Why would we want them to have long-range weapons that go further into Russia? We should end this war now. Ukraine already has part of Russia. They can use it as a bargaining chip. Trump will be able to, if he brings down energy and gets oil on like the $30 or $40 range, he'll crush Putin. Putin won't be able to afford the fucking war. We can figure out how to end this with Ukraine and end this with Russia and be done with it to where people aren't dying every fucking day on both sides. It's insane. And I know I'll get hate for this because there's some people who just look from the other lens. I liked Russia, and then when they invaded, again, I didn't like Putin ever, but he's not a good person. But then when they invaded Ukraine, I supported Ukraine in defending itself and staying around and existing. And now 2.5 years later, this fucking shit has to end. The lines barely move. They've got part of Russia now. It just needs to end. We don't need to feed the military-industrial complex and escalate a war that could end humanity. I just don't think that's a smart move.
Thank you very much.
What do you guys think in your chat? Do you think escalating a war and having the potential... Think if Putin has nothing else to lose, why wouldn't he just press the button? Why wouldn't he say, all right, you know what? Fuck you, world. And then just press the button. That's what I think would happen. All right. This says help the people of Springfield by voting for real Donald Trump. And it's got J.D. Vance on here. His video on the All In podcast was simply amazing. He said, in the last several weeks, my office has received many inquiries from actual residents of Springfield who said their neighbors, pets, or local wildlife were abducted by Haitian migrants. It's possible, of course, all of these are rumors, will turn out to be false. I've seen a bunch of them where there's video of these guys carrying these fucking things around, getting ready to eat them. There's people that are cooking them. This is fucking very real. This is very real. But the whole point here is this city of Springfield had like 58,000 people in it. Or has like 50, and then it had a 20, or maybe after that, it had a 20% increase in the population over the last couple of years, 25, something like that, like a massive shift higher. I'm sorry, 50%, something like that. And so this city now is overrun with illegal immigrants that they can't take care of. And there's actually a video in here that I think I've got. I'm going to show it to you. And by the way, Martin Pilda, thank you for the 10 memberships being gifted, dude. That means a lot. Let me see if I can find this one. SAVE Act. I want to talk about this in a second. But I want to see if I can find this other one. I might have it under Kamala. I probably do. I'm going to jump back over to the Kamala side. You guys got to see this. This is amazing. This is a black man from Springfield talking about his experience there and what's going on and what he believes is happening. And it's pretty important. It's right here, I think. Yeah, listen to this.
I think it's like
This is crazy. This guy is very well spoken.
It's kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun, because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits and stuff. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background.
I think he's 100% right. Somebody's making money from the buses dropping off all these guys and probably making government dollars the way that Biden and Harris have been running.
You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here.
I just want to say, guys, you don't realize the black community is enraged. I follow a ton of people in the black community on the political side, and a bunch of them, especially men, are incredibly vocal about supporting Trump now.
Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, y'all get the Highway State Patrol down here every week, and then y'all get like a task force for the Highway State Patrol, and they look for guns and they look for dope and this and that and the fourth. That same people that y'all got riding up and down Limestone doing U-turns, pulling people over for blinkers and pulling people over for going left to center and a couple miles over. Y'all can take them same people, the Highway State Patrol, and you can take them in every single one of their silver Chargers and Dodge Durangos, and y'all can take them to Sunset. And y'all can park them right over there, and y'all can teach people how to drive, since the Highway State Patrol knows so much about traffic laws and know what to do in traffic.
He's literally saying these guys, these illegal immigrants, are wrecking their cars by driving into buildings and hitting things and flipping cars over because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They've never had one before. Just insanity. Again, just a massive increase in people that don't speak the same language that are just causing problems all over the city. And this isn't an isolated incident. It's an extreme one, but you have problems all over the place. Aurora, Colorado is not in a good place. We've got the train tried gang or whatever from Mexico that's also now in Texas raiding places. It's fucking insane.
Traffic. They need to, y'all pay them. They can go over there and teach these Haitians how to drive, because it's getting I'm getting thousands of views on these, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is. Y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's crazy, bro.
Anyway, that kind of goes on like that, but I have to agree with the guy. Oh, hey, this is something I wanted to show. I have talked about this before, but I didn't find the video, and somebody hooked me up with it. This is AOC. This is Cortez talking about how nobody likes Kamala, and there's no way she'll be the president or the presidential candidate the day before, like the day or 2 days before she was the presidential candidate. Listen to how authentic this is.
And I'm going to say what a lot of these folks aren't saying. I'm just going to say it. If you
turn up volume.
think that there is consensus among the people who want Joe Biden to leave, that they will support Kamala, Vice President Harris, you would be mistaken. And I'm going to say that because if they're going to come out and say all their little things on background off the record, but they're not going to be fully honest, I'm going to be honest for them. I'm in these rooms. I see what they say in conversations. A lot of them are not just interested in removing the president. They are interested in removing the whole ticket.
Sorry about that. I was trying to...
A lot of these folks, Vice President Harris, you would be mistaken.
All right, let me get you back.
Record, but they're not going to be fully honest. I'm going to be honest for them. I'm interested in removing
Oh, I
the
guess that was the
president.
end. Yeah, so essentially, again, she was talking shit and saying, hey, guys, they don't want her. There's a decent amount of people who don't want her to be on the ticket at all, and they want her to go away. Isn't that amazing? Like, just how open and honest she was in this TikTok video that she throws out there. I think that's insane. But it's good to know, though, the truth about how she actually feels. Let's listen to Nikki Haley. This is her posting. Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote on the two biggest inflation drivers we've ever seen, or we saw more recently here. I shouldn't say we have ever seen. Take her at her word when she says her values haven't changed. Let's just listen to this real quick.
Roger Altman was just here. He's he's a Democrat who was formerly the Deputy Treasury Secretary under President Clinton. He said that he looks at it, the reason he's supporting Kamala Harris, even though he doesn't agree with all of her policies, is that he thinks overall she's going to be working on behalf of middle-income Americans and lower-income Americans. That she'll be doing things to get at the prices you just talked about. Why do you think Donald Trump's policies would be better in this?
I respectfully disagree. How can you say that when she's already talked about raising taxes, where she's talked about rolling back the tax cuts? When you look, she was the tie-breaking vote on the two biggest inflation drivers we've seen with the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. So take her at her word, take her at what we've already seen her do, and know that you're going to have more of that. She's not getting in the weeds talking about it. But let's not be like the UK. What did we see happen in the UK? There was a lot of generalities that were said. The Labour Party wins, and now they're suddenly finding out exactly what they got.
Said that.
Yeah, they're getting censorship. They're getting Keir Starmer, who's a fucking idiot, and allowing illegal immigration to continue. And that's just the norm now. That's the way the world works over there. Again, so here's that Tren means train of Aragua. It's like a water river or something. But these guys, again, are in El Paso, Texas now. You can see how they've got weapons and guns, and they're being said to have invaded this place. It says the El Paso County Attorney's Office just filed a restraining order against the hotel. They allege the owner has allowed illegal activity to go on for months. Police have been called there over 700 times in the last 2 years. Surveillance photos show two men in an altercation, and that's almost a police officer there every day. Altercation and a migrant holding a weapon. So again, things are not going good with all the illegal immigrants that are in this country. That narrative that Trump has out there about it being bad is real, and you could prove it with video and all kinds of data points. And I think that's something that Kamala is going to have a hard time getting away from. Let's see what else we got here. Just Elon Musk talking about the right to bear arms is there to protect free speech and to stop tyrannical governments from taking away your rights. That's why the first thing that all tyrants do is disarm the people. I agree with this. Let's listen to this comment, though, that he stemmed this post off of.
Should she also be, in your opinion, supporting a mandatory gun buyback program?
Listen, we're not going to be able to get where we need to go without action in Congress. We've got to pass some laws to deal with this. Now, I was heartened by the fact that 2 years ago we finally did a gun safety
1 sec, I'm just going to speed
law,
it up.
The Safer Communities Act. And it was the first gun safety law we passed in 30 years. 30 years. And it was modest, but it did save lives. But clearly, in the wake of what happened just the other day in Winder, Georgia, it's not enough. And the least we can do is move forward on the bipartisan spaces where ordinary people agree. Clearly, there's a disconnect between what the people, the American people, want and what they're able to get out of their government. Again, 87% of Americans believe in background checks. And yet I hear politicians say that it's not guns who kill people, it's people who kill people. And yet we don't even want to know who those people are. We won't even support.
Senator, just yes or no, though. Should she support the mandatory buyback program? Just a yes or no.
Listen, look, as a pastor, I've done buyback programs. You can pick this issue or that issue. But I think that, again, there's not one single thing that will make all of this go away.
That's funny. He didn't want to answer the question. Okay, cool. This is Kamala Harris giving a speech that week when Rachel Morin's killer was finally apprehended. The same 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungri was murdered. Oh, this is important. You got to check this out. I'm just going to play the video here. This is good.
So after all the things that happened this week, that's the speech you decide to give, that your administration...
She's going to make a really good point. Listen to this.
...does not rip families apart or tear families apart. I think that some of these families would disagree with you.
Please have a way born.
The two men are each facing a capital murder charge after Houston police say they murdered 12-year-old Jocelyn Noongara.
12-year-old.
A spokesperson with the U.S. Immigration and Customs
12.
Enforcement Agency
She was 12.
told us the two men are Venezuelan nationals
Just a kid.
who entered the country illegally.
I'm not going to be able to hug her anymore. And it was just a very sad moment. So
I can't imagine.
sorry.
No, you don't. Please, you don't apologize for anything.
This is the suspect police in New York say sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl after school in a Queens park, forcing her into the woods at knife point. The broad daylight attack shocked the city, and tonight police are crediting people in the neighborhood for the arrest.
They knew who he was. When they saw him out on the street, they tried to detain him. They called 911.
This photo, obtained by ABC News, shows police detaining Christian Giovanni Ingalandi early this morning. The migrant from Ecuador entered the U.S. illegally in 2021 through Eagle Pass, Texas. After Thursday's attack, police released this video of the suspect, people in the neighborhood recognizing him.
I seen him walk into the store, and I had to take him out. And I told everybody, yo, this is the rapist, you know. I punched him, I kicked him a little bit, I ain't gonna lie.
The 13-year-old and a male friend were in the park after school when police say Ingalandi pulled a large knife and ordered them into a secluded part of Casino Park and sexually assaulted the girl in front of her friend.
But it's not really surprising from this administration, because this administration has very clearly been party over people, politics over people, power over people. I mean, all the P words.
I know you've been asked this before,
100% agree.
I am stunned if the answer is still no. Have you heard anything? Maybe not Joe Biden, but anyone in the administration. Has anyone reached out to you just to offer condolences?
No, they put something on a website.
I have not personally been contacted by anybody. I was told that something was written on a little blurb was written on their website, but I don't frequent social media, so I don't even know what was said, if anything was said, but no one's personally reached out to me. And as far as I know, no one from the White House has reached out to anyone in my family.
My goodness. What would you...
Yeah, there might be something to normalize. X is just really unstable, and I haven't found any options on X that stabilize their frames. It would be nice if all of them was like auto-volumed. I wouldn't hate that at all.
Your message be, not to the administration, but to Joe Biden himself, the president that really has allowed all this to happen?
I would say, consider your actions and consider the consequences of your actions. Because at some point, if you're doing it deliberately, the consequences and the blood from it is on your shoulders.
You're complicit. You're complicit for what you do. It's very important to remember. And again, it's just like this kind of stuff right here. Stunning admission of one of the most conservative senators, Senator James Lankford, admits that it was Donald Trump who sabotaged the toughest border security. See, this is all bullshit, right? They keep saying this. This is the narrative that he sabotaged the border security bill, but you can't bring the bill at the end of your last year of your term and then say, hey, we'll only allow like 500 in a day or 5,000 in a day, whatever. I think it was 5,000 in a day, and be like, and we've got these other stipulations, and then say, oh, they're the ones that held it up. They're the ones that held it up. They're the ones that really were the problem. That's bullshit. We wouldn't have these outrageous numbers if that wasn't the case. And again, we got gangs everywhere committing sex crimes and all kinds of stuff. And even just the people, there's plenty of good people that are coming over too, but we can't support them. We don't have the money. We're already 130% debt to GDP. We're already not far from economic collapse, and we could lose the world reserve currency status and have a depression. Like, these are big things. It's very important. And we need to acknowledge these things. We need to acknowledge the damage that we're doing societally and economically to this country at a time where we can't have it. And we can't have contraction in our economy because we all of a sudden start taxing the shit out of every company that's here too. And then they start firing people. The price of goods start going up because we're implementing price controls that are making it to where market competitors just simply leave because they can't make any kind of profit and all they do is lose money. So then they just stop producing the product, and then you have a lot less of the product. Then the price goes up, and then you have to do more controls in order to try and regulate the price, but then you get more businesses disappear, and then you got fucking bread lines. This is how socialism works. We can go back hundreds of years and look at 100 different civilizations doing the same shit and failing. There's no need to try it again. Now, I'm going to jump over here. We're going to listen to what they have to say. We've got about an hour till the debate.
More than any other administration in modern history, brought us back from the pandemic. They actually did an infrastructure investment. Trump talked about Infrastructure Week for 4 years. They did it, bringing back American manufacturing, bringing the unemployment rate from over 6% now to about 4%. So there's a great story there. She just needs to tell it, and I think that she can do that effectively. And
yeah, here's the thing. Those are bounce back jobs. And again, when you have an economy that you've juiced with like $10 trillion between Trump and Biden over a period of 8 years, 7.5 years, but really a lot of that just over like the last 5.5, or 5 to 5.5, you're going to have bounce back. That's why we had inflation. We had actually not enough people. And wage inflation increased a lot. But then we're solving that by just importing shit tons of people. 4 million, 3 million, 2.5 million, doesn't really matter, a year into the system. And you're just going to break it. You're just going to break everything, guys.
And close that gap of people who say that they want to learn more or they're not quite sure. So I think on net, that's going to be.
I mean, I'm a retired multimillionaire, Melissa, so I don't have 2 jobs. I just do this for fun, and I do make money off of it. I think I'm like at $5,000 a month or something in revenue after YouTube taking a massive amount, and then taxes and shit. But this is just for fun. But there's probably plenty of people that have to do that. The illegal immigrants, the job creation, we've seen like 1.4 million jobs get created and added for illegal immigrants in the last year plus. And then at the same on that same note, we've seen 800 and something thousand jobs disappear for actual citizens. So I'm sure citizens are feeling tons of pressure as people that are willing to work for less and that are able to illegally, because this government doesn't give a shit, are taking their jobs from them. And also making housing more expensive. California was going to pass that thing for $150K. It was so absurd that Gavin Newsom, somebody who was for it, had to veto his fucking bill because it was getting so much anger. The Democrats are gonna destroy this society very, very quickly.
Be a positive for her. As people come to know her, she's going to gain support.
1 hour.
Julian, what does a victory for her tonight look like? I mean, is it, because Democrats have been trying to lower the bar, is it if she survives, or does she really have to get some shots in against former President Trump?
I think a victory for her tonight is to be able to articulate her vision for the future. Remember, what people were saying 2 months ago was that they were not satisfied with their choices. As much as I love President Biden, I think he's been a fantastic.
I think Biden was a better choice. He's just dead. He's just dead.
President, people were saying, look, we feel like we've been there and done that with both former President Trump and President Biden. Kamala Harris has this unique opportunity as the
she's not even a real person.
Challenger, as
if we're in a simulation, she is an NPC.
The new kid on the block, if you will, but also a track record of impressive experience. I think a win for her tonight is really the ability to say how she's going to lift up the middle class, how she's going to continue the progress that's been made under the Biden-Harris administration, and also articulating new vision for the future of the country. She can do that and stay focused on what the voters want to know and hear instead of get caught up.
Somebody said Biden is so like Weekend at Bernie's. Lol. Yeah, that's totally true. And then Kamala Harris is just like a robot in a skin suit.
In Donald Trump's antics.
Which just brings you back to who is actually running this country right now.
I think that'll be a win.
Former Secretary Julian Castro. Julian, always great to see you. We thank you for joining our coverage.
Thank you.
All right, we are joined now by our political pros, Shira Stein. She's a Washington correspondent for the San Francisco Chronicle. Don Calloway.
San Francisco, that sounds horrible.
He's a Democratic strategist and host of the Caucus.
Democratic strategist, yay.
This Room podcast. And Krisha Lenzo, she's a Republican strategist and chair.
All right, so we got 2-1, probably with the host, it's 3-1. Nice.
Of the Metropolitan Republican Club. We thank you all for being here tonight. Shira, I'm going to start with you. You've covered Harris for a long time, going back to San Francisco. What's something that you're looking for tonight that maybe the rest of us who haven't covered her for,
Dude, if Trump calls her an NPC, I will laugh my ass off. If that happens, we're definitely in the Matrix.
Nearly a decade, don't know.
Tonight, I'm really going to be looking for, how does she get...
What has she done? Here's what she's told us she really strongly believes in. She believes in the Green New Deal. Part of that deal, they always talk about Project 2025 like that's something that Trump wants to implement, this 250-page book thing that he's denied a bunch of times. But the Green New Deal has things like people not being able to fly around in the country and instead having to take other forms of travel, and then you could only fly internationally. That sounds a little weird to me. She's for less power, whereas Trump wants to improve power generation substantially to a point where we reduce energy costs by over 50% in his first year. She wants to do things like 100% renewable policies. Again, the 2030 Green New Deal is insane for us. It doesn't make any sense. We can't get there. And plus, Elon is going to be already helping us get there. We should let him basically continue at whatever price the market demands, because there's some fiscal part there too, that where Tesla can make it work. Whereas a lot of other companies can't, whether it's electric cars or whatever it is. They make money, others don't, and they can reduce costs and they can grow. We need more of that in this world. We don't need a low energy policy. We don't need somebody who's high taxes and all the other bullshit.
Across her policy position, how does she help the American people know her, to connect with her? For a long time, she was sort of reticent to talk about her personal life, to talk about her family, to talk about her parents, but also her husband and her stepchildren. And so the more that she talks about herself, the more I'm always surprised. It's very, very new for her to.
Is she a good debater? I know you're an objective journalist, but I mean, how is her debate record?
Her debate record's pretty good.
I heard back in Chicago she was an excellent, or a master debater. She was a master debater.
She's had some gaffes in the past, and something I'm reporting on right now for the Chronicle is sort of how she has changed as a candidate just in the last 4 years. But
policy positions or just everything?
Not policy positions, more so how she is as a candidate. How does she talk to voters? How does she talk on the campaign trail? What message? What does she appear? Is she confident in what she's saying? That's something that I'm hearing from a lot of her current and longtime staff. But the thing that's really matters tonight is to understand, for voters to understand who she is. You were talking about a few minutes ago. Voters don't feel.
I don't know, maybe something about substance.
Like they know her.
Didn't she yesterday? I think she actually published on her website finally what her policies are.
Yeah. This is the biggest
Maybe we should
opportunity
look
that
those
she
up.
has other than the DNC.
Don, I want to turn to you. Harris has had a weekend full of debate prep. Advisors have been trying to lower expectations. We're just hours away from the start. What do you think is going to happen tonight?
No, I don't want to fucking donate.
I think Kamala Harris has to make it a show about her and the American people that's somehow facilitated through the moderator. She's got to talk directly to the people, to both, number one, introduce herself, because frankly, nobody knows that much about any vice president in American history, but also to talk about her vision under a Kamala Harris administration and what Kamala Harris's America looks like. I think she would be best suited to not wrestle with the alligator that is Donald Trump. We have no idea what behavior he's going to get. Vivek Ramaswamy tried to clean it up, but there's no indication that he will act as a civil human being for the next 90 minutes when we've seen none of that for the last 10 years of his political presence in the States. So she's got to focus on the people and not be concentrating on the pivot back and forth with the chaos that he wants to invite and revel in. I think that's her mission, and it's a very clear one, to tell her story directly to the people and almost make him irrelevant.
Krisha, sometimes former President Trump has great debates, right? You can go back to the 2016 primaries where Republicans really loved the way he was debating. He captured some big moments there. I mean, there were some wild moments. And then there were other times when he debated.
We'll talk about those in a second. The problem with everything that she's doing is it's basically money printer shit where we increase inflation. And it's still, with all the heavy tax burden that she's putting on, which is supposed to pay back like $500 billion over a period of a bunch of years. I shouldn't be muted. You should be able to hear me. My mic says it's working. But I muted the audio real quick on this. I just paused it. So what was my fucking thought? Oh, it's just you. What was my thought? I lost it now. It's gone. It's gone. All right, we'll just keep playing.
Secretary Clinton, when he debated former president.
Oh, yeah. Well, just over here, all these policies that they have, all this money printing shit, there's major problems with this because you're still looking at contracting the existing economy, shrinking the stock market. They've already destroyed M&A. If you understand anything about venture capital, it's a fucking disaster right now. And you would freeze up markets even more and make every ETF and every major stock in the S&P 500 dump because of things like taxing unrealized capital gains, heavy tax burden with corporate taxes. Companies will just leave the country and they'll go to tax environments where it's more conducive to higher margins and greater profits. And again, all these things she's talking about doing, if you believe in a socialist utopia, they sound wonderful, but in practical reality, they never work. And that's the world that we're living in right now. It's just a fucking mess.
President Biden, and then this last debate against President Biden. So what do you think?
That's why I'm hoping she bombs it tonight, because if she bombs it tonight because of her stupid policies and her inability to communicate anything because they're not real, and he has and Trump has any facts behind him that tear up what's going on with her policies, and he focuses on those instead of name calling, I think he's going to crush it.
What's going to happen tonight, and which Donald Trump do you think we're going to see?
And that's what I'm praying for America.
I think we will see the same Donald Trump that we have always seen. The first couple of minutes will be incredibly pivotal. But realistically, when it comes to Kamala Harris and the differences we'll see on the debate stage tonight, it will be stark because unlike Donald Trump, who will be running on his record, Kamala is running on her empty words. Her policies continuously change, even up until a few days ago when she posted them online, stealing from Joe Biden's platform, stealing from Donald Trump's platform. We do not know what she stands for. It's very scary to think that this is one of the first extemporaneous interviews we've seen from her on the campaign trail. And it really, we have to hold her to account on all of her policy positions. And Donald Trump,
and so far, this is the only debate. We're only getting one debate instead of 3 or 4. This is fucking insane.
I believe will do that. While he's up against ABC News, I think he will come out strong because he is authentic, unlike Kamala, who, again, we have no idea what she stands for, although we do know, based on the ACLU 2019 report, that she is far more progressive than what she claims to be now, especially given Bernie Sanders' words, which he said the quiet part out loud, that she's basically going to be doing whatever she can to win the election.
Christian, we thank you for that. Shira, are you surprised?
Yeah, and that's exactly what they've said. Bernie Sanders said that. Everybody across the platform is pretty much like, let's make this work. We need to win the election. We don't care how.
She hasn't done more town halls, more engagement with voters, more unscripted moments, more interviews, or do you think this is sort of the strategy that you expected to have coming up for so many years?
Yeah, I think this is a strategy I would expect. I would also say
her
her
winning
campaign
personality.
She's done a lot of unscripted stuff. She does a lot of every city that she travels to go do a rally. She ends up stopping by a local business, having a little interaction, and those interactions are going mega viral for them on social media.
And maybe don't get covered enough by the other press, right?
Dude, they literally pay people to put the shit on TikTok. Nobody fucking gives a fuck. Trust me.
Exactly. So I think they think what they're doing is working. I would love to interview. I'm sure plenty of journalists would love to see her talking more about her policies, talking more in depth. The CNN interview was helpful, but there's still a lot left to be talked about.
Don, you got the last word here. 30 seconds left. What's the one piece of advice you give Vice President Harris?
Run your race. It's not about the opponent tonight. You've got one opportunity to introduce yourself and have a direct conversation with the American people, and then you can have all the town halls and interviews you want after this. But this is your night. Go out there and kill it. Make him irrelevant, and that will get under his skin more than anything else she could do.
Don.
Trump should walk on with a cat and a duck.
Don, Krisha, and Shira, we thank you all for being here. That's going to do it for this hour of our special coverage of the presidential debate. We are just moments away from that debate starting and our special coverage. I'm Tom.
Tonight, the presidential race gets up close and personal.
Vice President Harris and former President Trump meet in person for the first time ever, and it's on the debate stage.
Our special coverage starts right now.
Biden up against former. It's being held, as you mentioned, at the National Constitution Center, just across from Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, here in Philadelphia, of course, in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. So let's take you inside the debate hall now and show you the stage where this debate will be taking place.
So I'm going to put you on full screen, and I'll be right back.
This is a traditional one-on-one presidential debate, right? Both candidates standing. Former President Trump will be on the left side of your screen. Vice President Harris on the right side. We'll explain why in just a moment. The debate will be about 90 minutes with 2 breaks. There will be no opening statements. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the moderator's questions, 2 minutes for rebuttals if needed, and 1 minute for follow-ups, again, if needed. Former President Trump won the virtual coin toss, so he's opted to speak last during the closing statements. That's really important. Because of that, Vice President Harris got to choose her position, which again is on the right hand of your screen. As for the rules tonight, there are a handful of them. You've spoken about a couple of them. They are very important. Mics are muted when the other candidate is speaking. There is no audience, but there is a group of journalists observing the debate, known as the pool. There can be no interaction with staff during these breaks. The candidates will be given water, a pen, a pad of paper. You can't bring props or notes. There will be a giant timer just above the candidate's timeline so they know exactly how much time they have. And you may notice another thing. The candidates are nowhere near the same height. The podiums will be slightly different, and something to look out for the first few seconds of this debate. Here's why. This will be the first time both candidates meet each other for the first time ever, or as the kids say, Savannah and Lester, IRL.
In real life. We'll, for the old folks like us at home, we'll define it. Thank you very much, Tom.
All right, Garrett Haake has been covering the Trump campaign and joins us now. Garrett, I know you had a chance to speak to the former president today. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, Lester, I talked to him on the phone. The former president seemed to be in a good mood. I think he was very eager to get to this stage after what I'm told was a fairly intense last couple of days of preparation, although his weeks of preparation were less structured, certainly, than what the vice president had been doing. I asked him what he thought would be the challenges of debating the vice president, and he talked to me about the fact that he believes some of her policy positions have changed in a way that makes it hard for him to know exactly what she'll defend and what she won't. His campaign's solution for that, they tell me, is basically to take whatever they think is the most liberal, the most out of the mainstream position that the vice president has ever taken in her career and argue that that's her real position, regardless of what she says on the debate stage tonight. And Lester, I say that's the plan because, as always with Donald Trump, I think there is the plan and then there is what he decides to do on the fly on the debate stage.
So you can see Bitcoin falling a little bit.
Again, can tell us for sure.
Let me just slow this down. So again, I kind of set a midline here on Bitcoin's price action so that we can watch this, guys. And you can see how Bitcoin has started to fall down. So it started going up. Now it's grinding down. People are probably just trading this a little bit, trying to get a feel of whether or not he's going to win or not. If they're watching mainstream media, they're probably going to think that he's not. So,
all right, Garrett,
again, we'll see how it goes.
I believe we're joined now by Laura Trump, who's the co-chair of the former president's campaign. She, of course, is also his daughter-in-law.
What do you think is going to happen?
Ms. Trump, good morning. Good morning. Good evening. It's good to see you.
Who knows what time it is anymore?
Yeah, it's
no
like
props, no cats or ducks on the stage. Okay, all right, fair.
It's nice to have you with us tonight. Let's pick up where Garrett just left off. A lot of advisors we're told have
I wouldn't take the boss lady approach against Donald Trump. You got to remember, he could just say, "You're fired."
said to your father-in-law, behave yourself, just play it straight, don't be the truth social Donald Trump, be the guy that looks presidential. Is that the advice that you've given him, and do you think he'll take it?
Well, he took it on June 27th in the debate against Joe Biden. And, you know, I think if anybody had any question, how can Donald Trump perform in a debate? That was a knockout punch. Joe Biden is no longer the nominee for the Democrats, I would say specifically because of that debate. So, look, Donald Trump knows exactly what he needs to do, Savannah. Whenever he goes into this debate this evening, this is about talking about how the American people's lives were while he was in office and how their lives are right now. And he has to make sure people are reminded that Kamala Harris has had the opportunity for nearly 4 years to do a whole host of different things, many of them.
On that same vein, I just want to say, somebody just said something a second ago. Trump's going to say ETF or ET FaceTime home said Trump is going to say you were there for the last 4 years. Why didn't you do anything on all these issues? The issues she created. It's just such a great weapon. Like she's talking about here too. This is one of those things where she doesn't have a great record. People didn't like Biden. Democrats want to like her. Even the Hamas, Palestine, Free Palestine terrorists don't like her. So I just don't know how well it's going to play out.
She's talked about in the past several weeks. And I think the major question is, why do you have to wait? Why aren't you doing these things now? And he has to kind of expose Kamala Harris, I think, for who she really is, because America, by and large, does not know a lot about her. She's only done, of course, one interview thus far. So I think he's going to be calm, cool, and collected. I think everybody's going to be very impressed tonight.
Laura,
if you guys could hit the like,
both sides will claim victory, but
if you guys could hit the like to kind of boost up the stream, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to grow my channel as much as I can. I do investing stuff. I'm really good at it. Just ask the people in chat here that are members. Again, I want to broaden that, and I want to help more people.
Internally, what is a home run for Donald Trump tonight?
I think it's him having the opportunity to directly engage with the American people and truly call Kamala Harris out for some of her very radical past. You know, she has seemed to change her tune very recently.
I like JDEC88. Trump should shock her and come off as a nice old guy, no personal attacks. I think that would be totally shocking. I think that's something she's not prepared for. I love that idea.
On a lot of things, and it does beg the question, who is Kamala Harris and what is her plan for the future of this country? I think if he lays out what he did while he was president for 4 years and what he plans to do to rectify a lot of the damage that, quite frankly, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have caused in this country, I think that is a great success, and I think that we're going to see that happen tonight.
Yeah, show what they've done to this country. I totally agree. And somebody in chat just said, you said just let her destroy herself, essentially. And I totally agree with that. Jesse's the GOAT. Hit the like, fam. Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you, Lowe's.
You know, Nikki Haley, who, of course, was a rival of your father-in-law's in the primary.
Yeah, if you bought PayPal for 2025, you lost money. But I made 600% in 2023 across my portfolio. I think that counts for something.
Said that part of the reason that Donald Trump is trailing among women voters in particular, women voters that he very much needs in order to prevail in this election, is because of the way that he and his...
Unless any of you guys in chat, if any of you guys in chat made more than 600% or 7x in 2023, then please speak up.
Running mate J.D. Vance speak to women. She said, when you call even a Democrat woman dumb, Republican women get their backs up too. Stick to the policies, leave all the other stuff. I mean, it's interesting because you say he knows how to be calm, cool, and collected on a debate stage. But at this point, for better or for worse, voters know him and they know what...
Corey Dreyer, J.D. Vance is so good. He did a wonderful job in that All In podcast interview. I don't know if it was today or last night or whatever. He just absolutely crushed it. He's a brilliant man. Even Jason from the All In podcast, the most liberal of the four. Two of them are conservative. David Sachs is very conservative. Jason is very liberal. Even Jason basically said, "You're fucking awesome. These were great answers."
What he says on Truth Social, and he knows the names that he calls, and he knows some of the innuendo that I couldn't even repeat here on air that he makes about his running his opponent here. So how does that play into your concerns about this election?
Well, listen, I think Donald Trump is incredibly transparent.
Palantir's a good one. I actually, part of my wealth from 2023 was from Palantir. It went up like 100% in the time that I owned it, but I made $600,000 off the investment because I had really good call positions on it, and I called it at like the perfect level. So I made a fortune off of that one. That was a fun one, too.
Transparent, and I believe that is something that's important for a leader in this country. Look, we had 3.5 years, Savannah, of people saying,
nice.
What's going on
good
with
job,
Joe Biden?
Silas.
And
You want to do the
Harris
YouTube channel?
was one of the many people who lied about his state. We need transparency in our leaders, and you don't have to love everything about Donald Trump. Quite frankly, he himself said, you don't even have to like me. But when you are talking about someone who's going to have the policies that's going to make your life less expensive, that is going to secure our southern border, that's
90%? You got to tell me that story sometime. That's not a great number. You got to tell me about that.
going to keep us safe, that is going to get us out of wars, not into wars. Those are the policies that people need to hear about, and that's what I think people should be basing.
Yeah, again, I can't understand how the Democratic Party is the party of war, the party of escalation with war with Russia, the party that is okay with a war with Israel and Hamas, a party that's okay with a war starting in China potentially around the same time. I just don't get it. I don't understand why they're this way. That's probably why the big corporations are there, though, and the big money's there. 70% of the overall wealth for the campaign, as of recent, here has been democratically donated, instead of 30% that goes to Republicans. That used to be very different in the 80s and early 90s. So some things have changed over time. The Democrats have become the party of war. It's so weird. I don't understand it, but that's where the money is.
Their vote on it. It's our job at the RNC and the campaign to relay that to
Just to be clear, I mean, that policy debate absolutely is fair game and should happen. What I'm talking about is stuff he puts on Truth Social where he calls her dumb or not that smart or not as good looking as him or makes a sexual
I mean, I call her fucking stupid, so does that count?
Innuendo about how she attained her position in politics.
I mean, she did. I could literally show you a video right now that has her hanging out with a pimp of a mayor in Chicago back in the day. Who wants to see that real quick? All right, let's just watch it.
Notorious for his flamboyant lifestyle. Flashy clothes, fancy parties, fine women.
There's Kamala Harris.
And fast cars.
You should from now on address me as the mayor.
If ever a man and a municipality were made for each other, it is this
Kamala
man,
again.
this place.
So yeah, she was very close to the mayor, somebody who was super corrupt. Anyway, that's how she got to the top. Good job, Kamala. Way to work it.
Politics, that kind of thing.
Well, Donald Trump is very good looking. He'll be the first to tell you that. But I really ultimately think that, whenever people are more...
That's... Okay, real quick, sorry. Silas said, yes, I was buying on margin and short-term options. Elon dumped Tesla that started a cascade of losses. That I get. So you were a part of that drop down to 100. That's where I made the first amount of my money. I made $250,000 off of Tesla buying that bottom, and then I made $250,000 off of Meta, a company I don't even like, but whatever. I made the money, and then I moved it into Palantir, and then I moved the gains from Palantir into other investments. So we probably had an opposite on that one.
More focused on that than they are their everyday life. I think that's a hard thing to try and sell to people whenever they go to the grocery store and they can't buy as much for their families, whenever they go to fill up their gas with their gas tank and they can't fill it up as much. Ultimately, I think that elections come down to kitchen table issues. And again, you don't have to love everything about him.
Yeah, and margin will kill you.
You might not even want to hang out with Donald Trump, but whenever you look at your life and the future for this country, between these two individuals, you cannot survive 4 more years of what this country has just been through, and that is exactly what a Kamala Harris administration would be.
She's brilliant. That's a really good point. It's that you don't even have to like Donald Trump. You just need to not want to see the destruction of America, whether it's our economy or our social cohesion, just from a rapid influx of immigrants. There's already, in parts of Chicago, New York, and others, there's a bunch of minorities, including large black populations in South Side Chicago, that are not happy about all the illegal immigrants that are getting homes and getting a lot of services and getting money and cards that they can spend every month for when they have gotten jack shit. Especially think about it if you're a veteran, what a spit in your face that is.
Donald Trump's policies worked. They made life better for people all across this country. They kept us safe, and he will do it again with 4 more years in the White House.
All right, Laura Trump, thank you for being with us. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander.
Luke Automata says, I hope Trump remains calm tonight because the only thing they have against him is that they dislike his personality. I personally understand his attitude and humor, but most people are sensitive. I agree. I'm pretty brutal, too, so I get that. I do agree with you, Luke.
Who is covering Vice President Harris's campaign. What's the view from there?
Well, Lester, let's start with some new reporting into NBC News. According to 3 people familiar with their conversations, Kamala Harris and the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the 2016 Democratic nominee, we have learned, have spoken within the last several days, where Clinton provided Harris advice and guidance as the only other woman to...
What is my biggest loss? I would say my biggest loss is probably these PayPal shares right here in this last year. Down 330, but I've got another set of contracts sitting on another account. So down about $400,000 for these 2025 contracts. But that's the only real loss I've had. I had some SoFi that didn't do super good, but the vast majority of the things that I hold right now are ready to crush it. And again, I'm up about $350,000 after locking in money on Tesla, so I've done really good off of that. And all my bets are asymmetric, right? Like if you pay attention to what I do, you know how it works.
Do a debate like this one-on-one with Donald Trump in the past. Among that advice, we're told specifically that Clinton told Harris that Trump may try to debate her during the course of the conversation, as we've witnessed in the past, and specifically said that if that happens, that she should turn it back on Donald Trump himself and try to provoke him directly. One thing to keep an eye on as we anticipate these two on stage a short time from now. We're told that Clinton and Harris have spoken several times over the course of the last several months since she became...
Yeah, so anybody who might be new here, I basically have a stream. I do a market open. I do a market recap. I provide other stuff. I do a weekly Bitcoin mining comparison stream that I'm getting ready to do. And I talk about everything from macroeconomics, geopolitics, fundamentals of companies, financials, and down to technical analysis. So I cover it all. And I give you my opinion on everything, bond markets, inversions, treasury bill issuance, over short durations and long, and the federal government debt and what's happening in China, just a shit ton of other stuff.
The Democratic nominee. We've also been hearing from those in and around the Harris preparations for this debate, telling us, among other things, that she had a series of mock debate sessions, many of them happening here.
Yeah, that Hillary debate was not very good in 2016. Trump just walked behind her the whole fucking time. It probably won't be quite like that. These things are so neutered now and so quiet. There's not even a crowd.
In the state, in Pittsburgh, in the course of that time, they had TV lighting. They had, so she could have the real experience, and the stage on which she would stand. That she has watched some debate clips of Donald Trump in the past to prepare herself for what she may.
Thanks, Austin. That's very kind of you.
And to anticipate tonight. We're also hearing now from her husband. Of course, he is the second gentleman of the United States. Could he be the first gentleman if he wins? Well, if she wins, well, we heard from him in the form of a tweet a short time ago where he said in part, and I'll pull it up to read to you, Kamala, I can't wait for everyone to see you in action tonight.
Awesome, Corey. Hi, everybody.
Got this and I've got you. Earlier in a separate post, he said that she is ready. He could tell it by looking into her eyes, and said that she can smell weakness and knows how to confront a coward. Her campaign, her aides are hoping that her experience as a former prosecutor will benefit her tonight the same way that she prosecuted some of those.
You know what I hate about this debate is it's literally who can trip up the other person emotionally. And who could say like the right series of things. It's not actually what matters tonight isn't the actual substance of policy. It's not really thoughtful in nature. We just have these epic battle royales where we try and leave people barely knowing what's actually going on. It's just fucked up.
Supreme Court nominees in the past, Brett Kavanaugh, one that becomes very readily familiar as people look back to her experiences in the Senate, that she'll be able to prosecute the case against Donald Trump tonight. All things to keep an eye on as we get started here on a historic evening in Philadelphia.
All right, Peter, thank you.
Marty says, you're a fucking machine, my dude. Thank you, Marty. You're nonstop pumping out quality content. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate that, man. Melissa says, that's because she is weak. She is weak. Marty Cohen, all for free. Yep. Dude, I like to hook up as much as I can. You can contribute if you want to ask about stocks, their financials, and their technicals, and I help with that. Marty says press the like button. Silas says prosecutors are not known for their integrity. They're known for going for what is expedient for them, not truthful. That's probably true. Even though I've got a relative who literally was a prosecuting attorney for the local county I'm in, and was one of the best of them. I think he would disagree with you, but he's probably a rare exception.
For more, let's bring in North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, who is a surrogate for the Harris campaign. Governor, it's good to see you. So 60% of voters, nearly 60% in a recent poll, said they want to see change. Kamala Harris is the incumbent vice president. How do you make the argument that she's a change candidate when she's been in office for 3.5 years?
How do you? Please answer.
Well, first, the record that she and Joe Biden have established as president and vice president are bringing change to this country with investment in high-speed internet, fighting prescription drug costs, expanding.
No, dumbass. Here's the point. People don't like the direction the economy is going in. This doesn't mean you talk about what policies they did and how you think they're so great. This means people think it's shit. They don't like the direction we're going in, and they want change, which means you can't have an answer to this.
Health insurance, investing in infrastructure. Those things are long generational investments that are changing America, and that's a good thing. But she's also laid out her own economic plan. She sees that people are facing higher costs. She understands child care, unlike Donald Trump, who clearly doesn't have a clue about child care, neither does J.D. Vance, who thinks the grandparent.
Melissa said, change as in, that's all we have left for our bills. Yes, Melissa, that's exactly right.
And uncles and aunts look after children. She wants to reinstate the child care tax credit. She wants to help.
Yeah, let's talk about high-speed fucking internet. You could literally just sign that contract with fucking SpaceX, Starlink, and you'd be done. But no, we're not going to, right? We're not going to do that. We're not actually going to help people. We're just going to talk about it and not actually make it happen. Just like all the charging stations that didn't get built with the tens of billions of dollars you put towards them. Super cool.
Small businesses.
And again, some estimates, the border wall for that Trump wanted to implement, Democrats said for years that it was too expensive. It was over $5 billion. Rough estimates have our current expenditures at the border in a year across the entire country to deal with illegal immigration for all the people coming over and that have been here and staying here are about $150 billion a year in costs. So that could be $700 or $800 billion if you look at inflation and you look at increased entry over the next 4 years that Kamala is going to be president. We could have $700 to $800 billion that we have to pay towards illegal immigrants that are in this country. That's almost bigger than our defense budget and catching up with our interest payments on our debt. This is fucking insane.
Instead of big corporations. So I think she can lead tonight. She can lead with her path for a new way forward and really bring a lot of people who have been.
Remember, guys, the new way forward is the old way forward.
Been disaffected, who really haven't voted the last few times. I think that she can excite them. History is going to be made this year.
How? How can she excite them? Is this the Free Palestine crowd, or which crowd are we talking about? Is it all the black men that are running over to Trump? Is that how we're going to excite them?
And North Carolina voted for Barack Obama in 2008. We're going to vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 and make history again.
Law.
Let me ask you, in a recent interview, Harris seemed to shrug off some of the personal attacks that Donald Trump has levied her way, calling it from the playbook of the past. Will she have to take...
All right, guys, just to be clear, we have about 30 minutes until the debate actually starts, so we're getting closer. I've got this on NBC because I want to be able to have their leftist take of what's going on, and then I'm the guy on the right? I think we find fair and balanced by listening to their argument and then me making mine, and again, people in the chat can certainly help with that too. Also, hit the like if you would.
Take on these things more directly in this debate setting tonight?
Well, it'll be interesting to see that in the middle of all of his word salads and lies, which we know are coming, whether he hurls insults at her while she's there in person. We'll see if he does. I suspect that she will brush them off pretty quickly and head into making sure she's putting meat on the bones of her policy, telling the country about the direction that she wants to take it, making sure that we shore up the middle class, making sure that the tax breaks go to the middle class and not the billionaire friends of Donald Trump. She's going to distinguish herself from Donald Trump in a strong way. And I think those insults, whether they come or not on the stage, she'll go right past them and make sure she's sticking to the issues that the American people will care about.
You know, it's interesting you say that because today on Debate Day, the Harris campaign released an ad seeming to want to goad Donald Trump with a clip from the convention. Let me roll you a little portion of this.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems.
Oh, she had a big crowd. Oh, the crowd.
This weird obsession with crowd sizes.
It's so funny that they focus on like this instead of the actual policies that are put forth. And don't get me wrong, I get how you can have political bias, but when you see this coming out of 9 out of 10 media outlets, and this is the only view you get, you'd think you'd be like, hey, am I the one living in a bubble? Do I actually watch any of his speeches? Did I ever listen to hear whether or not that was truthful or a lie? Or do I just listen to 8-second clips, 20-second clips?
Interesting, because everybody
like that one
says they want to talk about policy, and then everyone kind of gets down in the dirt a little bit, and that turns voters off. So,
and here's the deal: if you're an 8-10-second clip person, I'm not making fun of you. I'm kidding. I actually am. I don't think you should do that. I think you should understand what the fuck is happening, especially if it's the future of our country. So yeah, I am making fun of you. You shouldn't be spending 10 fucking seconds on a clip. If I have to watch Kamala Harris, you have to watch Donald Trump. I'm sorry.
why do you think this is effective? And are you sure it's not going to make people think, well, this is just more of the same?
Well, look, there are a lot of ads in this campaign, and a lot of them are about her policies and her backgrounds.
She's a fembot from Austin Powers.
She's not going to take any crap
Politician
from Donald Trump on that stage.
Not
today.
much going on.
She is a prosecutor, and she's going to make sure that she gets her points across.
You guys are great.
But she's not going to be
Hype in the
distracted
chat, guys.
by
Hype in the
name
chat.
calling. I think it is turning off America, and it may be one of the reasons why the
Is that
the
all you
Harris
got,
campaign
Democrats?
chose
Just
to
that
run
he
such an
calls
ad,
people names,
reminding
not
people
what his
that this is
actual
really what
policies
Donald
are?
Trump is all about. It's all about.
How has the Democratic Party and Democratic media gotten so fucking shallow that the only thing they can even talk about is how Trump can be a bully, and not even speak to any of his policies whatsoever? He's a bad guy. He's a bully. He'll pick on her. Trump bad. January 16th, even though he said, go in peace. But bad things happen. People were walking through and getting tours from the police officers. Well, potentially maybe they were FBI. There's a lot of weird shit if you actually look into what happened on that time frame. I didn't believe any of it until I started going more in depth. And it's really wild. It's really wild, the sense of media that we get and the fact that they can't talk to his policies in any way of substance whatsoever. They don't even want to. There's no talking about Donald Trump's policies. None.
About him and his narcissism, and every decision that he makes comes back to whether
he's a narcissist who only cares about himself. That's not remotely true.
Will advantage him or not. And when Kamala Harris talks about how she gets up every morning wanting to do good things for the American people, I think people will see the real difference.
So Donald Trump, he wants to get up in the morning and shit in the waffles of American people. That's Donald Trump, guys. And Kamala, she gets up every day and she's like, what can I do to help the world? And then we play Disney Snow White, the latest version. No, not the old one.
A race about character, too. This is a race about the soul of our country, and people are going to be making that decision. This debate will be a time tonight to make some decisions for people. I'm hoping we can bring in people who haven't been involved in the process that much in the past. More than half of our volunteers the first couple of weeks in North Carolina.
And for anybody new here, I voted for Joe Biden last election, so nobody has the right to be able to tell me that I'm one-sided in my views and ignorant. I've heard every other fucking argument that's ever been made. Okay, I was on that side, and I'm a critical thinker. I don't just take things as everything Trump. If Trump becomes the president, I'm not going to take everything he says and be like it's the most wonderful fucking thing in the world. I won't do that either, right? So, so again, it's the Democrats that are at the problem. I didn't move. You guys did.
Carolina, we're first-time volunteers. We've got a lot of first-time donors to the campaign. You can go to KamalaHarris.com and contribute to the campaign. So we're excited. We think tonight will be a big night. We'll see what happens.
All right. Governor, thanks so much for spending time with us this evening. We appreciate it. We're going to get back to politics in a second, but we do have some breaking news in the South we're following, where Francine just strengthened into a Category 1 hurricane that's barreling toward Texas and Louisiana.
Yeah, we'll let this roll for a little bit. I'm just going to mute it. I'm going to set it to a higher, or I'm just going to push it to the end here too, because they're talking about things like hurricanes that I just don't give a shit about. And now we're jumping into some debates. Let's see here. Yeah, we're just talking about old shit. So I'm just going to push it to the end. All right, now we're current. Let's see what he has to say.
President. People remember they could afford gas and groceries just a few short years ago. There weren't wars breaking out all over the world. We had a rational, sane southern border policy. So he's got to remind people of.
I mean, that's it right there, right, guys? We didn't have wars all over the place. We didn't fuck up Afghanistan and cause, over a dozen deaths from our own military personnel while leaving behind a bunch of interpreters and people that assisted the West so that they could get slaughtered by the fucking Taliban while we leave 850 million, how many billions? I don't even know. I'll look it up. Of equipment sitting there in that country for the Taliban to be able to take. Then Russia sees that weakness. They invade Ukraine. Then the Hamas people that have been building tunnels for fucking ever go, you know what? Hey, while the Ukraine war is going on, while there's threats with Russia, or threats with China, maybe it's a good time for us to go ahead and attack Israel. And then, while all this is happening, maybe China's going, hey guys, maybe we should have our opportunity. They're escalating with Russia right now, getting ready to create nuclear war. Maybe now is a good time for us to invade Taiwan. Maybe the party of war, the Democrats, need to actually be replaced so that we can step out of the war in Russia, help Israel finish theirs and be done with it so that they can protect the West, because they're the front line of it, and then get ready for China. Let's do that. Let's cause them some pain. Let's make it to where China or any country, like Donald Trump said, any country that's trying to move away from the U.S. dollar receives a tariff. What was it, 60% or 100%? A huge tariff, to where if you're trying to leave. If you're trying to leave the U.S. currency, which is like all the BRICS countries, then you get fucked. And then China overnight has to change their stance. There's better ways to approach everything in life, and Trump has the better ones. And if anybody has any policies of his that they disagree with, I'd be happy to tell you why I support them.
Of that, he's got to expose her radical record at the same time, but he needs to stay on.
Yeah, 80 million just in guns left behind. That does not surprise me. Thanks, Southside.
Message. He needs to focus on what the American people care about every single day.
Give me a second.
Not run rabbits. There's no doubt she's going to have those canned lines ready to go, those contrived stories like she did in the package that you guys just played. Look, she called Joe Biden a racist and a rapist on a debate stage, had merchandise ready to go, but she couldn't parlay that into anything positive for her campaign. She'll do that to Donald Trump tonight. The question becomes, will he follow her down that trail, or will he stick to the points that the American people care about most?
And Jen, does the vice president have to have things that she wants to remind the public about in
Brock
terms of
is
history?
coming back with an answer.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the challenges.
$7 billion worth of military equipment was left behind. Here's the answer right here, guys. So the amount of military equipment left behind in Afghanistan after the U.S. withdrawal under President Biden has been subject to a considerable discussion and scrutiny. Here's a breakdown based upon various reports and analysis. Value of equipment. According to a report by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR, and other sources, approximately $7 billion worth of military equipment was left behind. This is their number. We probably didn't volunteer one. This figure accounts for equipment transferred to the Afghan National Defense and Security Force, the ANDSF. You would hope this would be pretty accurate. Over 16 years, which remained in Afghanistan at the time of the U.S. withdrawal in August of 2021. Types of equipment. The equipment left behind included a wide array of military hardware, 40,000 military vehicles, including 12,000 Humvees. Think about that. We gave the Taliban a massive army, aircraft, 78 planes and helicopters, though many were rendered inoperable by demilitarized before departure. That would be good. Hopefully they can't get weapons from Russia in order to be able to fix them. Weapons, over 350,000 rifles, among other small arms. Technology, 16,000 night vision goggles, extensive communication equipment, and other surveillance gear. Just like, this is insane. We shouldn't allow this stuff. This made us look weak, and this is why we're so fucked up right now and having so many wars all over the place, not to mention illegal immigration and all the other bullshit.
For her is that every candidate wants to be the change candidate, right? You have a former president and a sitting vice president, so they're not the natural change candidates. She has to figure out on this debate stage how she can both embrace part of her record that people may like and also build on it and tell people that she's going to do something different. That is very tricky.
Sounds like you're saying she has a higher bar.
She does have a higher bar. I think there's higher expectations for her. I will say, I'm not sure that looking in the past, that's not what the public is really looking for. We know that from every election ever. People want a...
I'm sorry, Trump is totally the change candidate. This fucking lady has been in office for almost 4 years, and Trump was in office before, and there's very huge distinctions between the differences in how they've run their governments and the responses and the way that things have changed. Look at any major city and look at the homeless problem all over the place. Look at all the immigrants that are committing crimes and the 40,000 that are getting dumped out into the street in New York City so that they can bring in more over the years ahead. They processed 200,000 illegal immigrants in New York City. They've only given 2,000 of them jobs in the city, per Cash Jordan and his reporting. And all the data looks right. I mean, that is what happened. You guys can look it up yourself. So this is kind of crazy. that, again, this is just a fucking mess, and there's very clear distinctions, and he should be able to clarify those pretty easily.
Forward-looking plan and vision. So the other part of what she needs to do is tell people exactly what she's going to do.
Do you think she's made it unnecessarily hard on herself in this particular moment? Because she hasn't done very much off the cuff, unscripted. She did one interview since being elevated to the top of the ticket. Now it's this night. Does that just ratchet up the stakes when they don't need to be ratcheted up any higher?
I actually think the biggest challenge for her is that she's never met him before or interacted with him before. And she is a studious, thorough prepper, which I think is good no matter what political party you're from. That's a good thing. But it also means you have to let go of those briefing books and be in the moment. Donald Trump is not a standard, traditional policy debating candidate. So it requires a different muscle. And I think she's never practiced that muscle before. And that's the piece that I think is going to be challenging.
Yeah, just quickly. It's interesting because you do want to look in the future. There's no doubt about that. The problem with Kamala Harris is every time she starts to say, I promise you I will, on day one I'm going to, Donald Trump can just say, but you're the sitting vice president right now.
We're getting to 23 minutes. We're starting to catch up here.
I don't think the American people are going to buy it.
You both know him very well. Lara Trump just told us a few moments ago he's going to be calm, cool, and collected. Raise your hand if you think he will be.
Like always. What are you talking about? He's always calm.
Is that the worst thing that could happen to Kamala Harris?
If he is calm, cool, and collected, I'm not sure it's the worst thing, but I think she is going to hopefully not take the bait. I think the Clinton advice is good advice to her. Don't take the bait. Try to bait him a little bit. That would be a win for her.
All right, Hogan and Jen.
There right now. This is a running average. We keep Harris at 47-45 for Trump.
So again, these poll averages, this one right here, I don't know if this is Harvard or who it is. It's probably a left-leaning one, but some of the recent polls, just for the new people that are new and catching up here, this is pretty crazy. So if you look here, you can see the Harris spread is 1.1. The problem is Biden was up by 7.5 the same time 4 years ago in history. So she's already down 5.9 points, which puts her at a deficit and a losing category with the popular vote. When competing against Trump. What is made worse by this is when you look at New York Times just coming out with a poll from 9.3 to 9.6 with a high sampling size of likely voters that said that Trump wins by 1 point. This is the fucking New York Times, and they're saying Trump wins. Then the Harvard-Harris polling, Harvard with RV votes, this is registered voters, not likely voters. I don't like these as much, has a tie for Trump now. And then if you go down here again, NPR, everybody expects there to be bias. Emerson has bias. Morning Consult is run by Bloomberg, super biased, probably the worst. But Rasmussen is a little bit right-leaning, but they've also given points for that bias themselves. So, and they're pretty accurate a lot of the time, but they're +1. Then you have a tie from Harvard. Then you have a tie from New York Times. The drift actually looks like Trump is winning. When you look at this, it looks like he could win the popular vote, which would be unheard of. And I don't think anybody, I don't know why my scroller isn't working. Let me fix this manually. Why anybody, again, you can see him climbing up here pretty steeply. If this debate goes well for Trump tonight, it's just going to be game over.
2-point lead for Harris, obviously.
So some of this you kind of have to ignore because these are super biased polls that aren't even used at Real Clear Polling. And Real Clear Polling, again, had Biden up by like 10 or 11 points in his election, and he only ended up winning by 4.5 or 4.9, something like that. So it's it already leans left, and then they don't even use those polls because they're not left enough.
Democrats like that, but some context for that. First of all, there's this. Donald Trump has run from behind both previous times he ran for president. At the same point, 4 years ago in our poll average, Donald Trump was trailing Joe Biden by 7.8 points. And at the same point, close. In 2016 in our poll average, Trump was trailing Hillary Clinton by 4.5 points. Now it's only 2. So yeah, Trump's behind, but this is closer than he's been in the polling in previous elections.
I will say this guy right here, he's going to be when we have the actual election, he's going to be going over the states and showing the tally of everything. I really like him. He seems to be pretty genuine.
And there's also this. Remember, in 2016, Trump lost the national popular vote to Clinton, won in the Electoral College. In 2020, Trump lost the popular vote by a wide margin to Joe Biden, almost won in the Electoral College. Is there going to be a gap like that again that works to
almost 15 minutes, guys?
Trump's favor, an Electoral College advantage. That's what you think about when you look at this. The 7 core battleground states. And again, poll average here, the average of the major polls in those states right now. And you see the headline, obviously, these are very close margins. Look, Harris, 1/10 of 1 point in the North Carolina average right now. Trump by a 0.5 point in Georgia. These are very, very close. Although you take a look and you see one here that's a little different. That's Wisconsin. Harris on average just over 4 points ahead right now.
Yeah, so I've been seeing polling in Pennsylvania that looks like Trump could win.
This was, keep in mind, Wisconsin, the source of the single biggest polling miss in.
Is BTC bouncing Concord? Not really. If you look, I have a green line and a red line. You can see it's just right about where its median is from where I drew that line almost an hour ago. So it really isn't doing much.
2020. It had Joe Biden well ahead, nearly 10 points on average. He won the state by less than 1 point. The polling here was way off in 2016 as well. There was a pretty big miss in.
This guy's doing a pretty good job, though, calling out kind of the bullshit in the numbers, even though they look very blue.
Michigan, too, states with large blue-collar white populations where Trump has run up very big numbers. The polls didn't sufficiently capture that in 16 and 20. Is that going to be different in 2024, or is there more Trump support in some of these states than it appears in the polls? That's a major question to think about as you see more numbers come out. And then you just see in this column right here, the electoral votes. Again, 7 core battleground states. Where's tonight's debate? It is in the state that is first among equals when it
Yeah, poly market is a betting market, but it shows him doing really good, too. Nate Silver shows Trump doing really good. I'll show you that in a second.
comes to battleground states, 19 electoral votes in Pennsylvania, more than any other. What does that mean functionally? If you're one of these campaigns and you lose Pennsylvania, mathematically, if you want to offset that, you got to win at least 2
Let me
others
see,
to make
real
up for the
quickly,
19
though. We'll do a
you're
search
losing out
here.
on in Pennsylvania. This is the king of the battleground states.
Steve, not to bring it back memories, but weren't we here until Saturday, the week of the election, waiting for Pennsylvania?
That's right, 11:30 Saturday morning.
Oh my God.
A lot more
It was coming,
auditors
right?
going to be
Okay,
watching
well, we shall see if
elections.
they
A
do
lot
this. Sets up
more,
very nicely for our next guest. What do
lawyers,
voters
too.
want to hear from candidates tonight? These battleground voters, they're
Especially on the
deciders.
Republican
Kate Snow is
side.
in Pennsylvania talking to those undecided
So
swing
let's
voters.
see what we got here. Nate Silver's awesome.
Hi, Savannah. Yeah, we're at the Churchville Inn. It's a restaurant in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
I'm gonna
It's
mute
right
this real
outside
quick.
of Philadelphia.
I want to actually look at what's going on here in some of the polling data. So Nate Silver says this, and this guy leans liberal. He is a liberal for the most part. His data, the bias is almost always in that direction, like it literally going back a decade. He said this is pretty interesting. If markets are pricing in a debate win for Harris, stands to reason they're a bit higher on her than the Silver Bulletin forecast. So he's saying then versus his own. And I think the 70 again. I think this is bad for her. I think that if people have an expectation of her outperforming and she doesn't, I think that could be a problematic for them. Let's see here. I want to see if he has any other good data here. Chance of tipping the election. So this is an interesting point. So this basically shows that if you win Pennsylvania, it's got such a high ranking in the voter power index that you pretty much Trump's ability to win the election comes to 92.2%, which is higher than Harris's 90.3%, but it really improves your odds of winning the election. So if Trump, for some reason, ended up picking up Pennsylvania, he's getting Texas no matter what. We know that. He's getting Florida no matter what. We know that. He has potential of getting Arizona. He has potential for Georgia. He has potential for Michigan as well, and maybe even Nevada. Like he's got the ability to take a lot of these. It's pretty crazy how things are sitting right now in the polling. And I don't know. I don't have the latest one in there, but whatever. We'll skip it for now.
Not pushing policies through just because the person that put it through was from another party. And Andrew, let me ask you about your issues, because we were talking earlier. You like some of the things. You're really big on policies that Trump supports, and then you're also really big on policies that Harris supports. You don't know what you're going to do. So what do you need to hear tonight?
I feel left behind by the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, Harris received 0 votes. I would like to have a say in the primary, and they didn't give me that. I feel that they think that they know what's best for me.
Nice, dude. This guy's hostile. Love it.
Harris hasn't said anything. Harris's policies, a lot of them, have just been stolen from Trump. Taxes on tips, putting up the border wall. She's said absolutely nothing of her own with her own ideas. So I'm waiting to see anything from her that is an original idea and not stolen from the other candidate.
All right, guys, we're going to watch this debate together, and Savannah and Lester, we will certainly report back on sort of
All right, I didn't hear the other two, but he's not looking promising.
what the reactions are here in the room. It's an instant focus group.
Yeah, some important voices to hear. Kate, thanks very much. Let me bring in 2 experts at debate preparation. Greg Craig served as White House counsel in the Obama administration. He
Less
prepped
than
John
15
Kerry
minutes.
by playing George W. Bush.
Like 13
and
and a
Judd
half
Gregg
minutes.
is a former senator from New Hampshire who prepped George W. Bush by playing John Kerry. And Senator, let me begin with you. You know, the candidates, of course,
hitting you with a tongue tire there.
Yes, it's not easy. The Harris folks really want to put forth her and introduce her to people who don't know a lot about her right now.
Not too interested in this part. I got to say, I'm actually pretty nervous, guys. The way this election goes probably won't be the end of America. Hopefully not. But it won't be great if Kamala Harris does well. And so I'm really hoping she bombs tonight because she doesn't have real policies. She doesn't have real thoughts. She's just throwing out whatever she can and threatening to print a bunch of money. She wanted to print $4 trillion when they did the Inflation Reduction Act that actually increased the inflation because you're printing a bunch of money and putting it out into the money supply. But she wanted to do $4 trillion. Biden said, no, we're only doing 1. So if you think about it, she would be a crazy president. Her ability to spend sounds like it's second to none. So I hope she doesn't get the power.
To defining an individual and whether they connect with the audience, but you can't change.
Let's see. Kyle Wright says it's not possible for her to do well tonight after a terrible performance on pre-recorded and edited interview. Sorry, I'm trying to scare off my Jack Russell Terrier who's standing by the door. I can't say that it's impossible for her to do well tonight, which is what I'm worried about, right? I don't want her to do well. I don't think she's the right person for the job. I think her policies are horrific, whether it's taxation or the illegal immigration or just anything that she talks about, the Green New Deal, all this stuff, just censorship, talking about censoring X and censoring free speech and the government being the deciding body on what is truth is a frightening fucking concept, because that means whoever's in power has the ability to tell people what the truth is. We don't want that as a nation. We want freedom of speech. It's very fucking important. So I hope that she in no way wins, and it frightens me, right? Like I don't want to see her win because I don't want to see America go down a dark path. But I look forward to this, guys. I don't think she can get the House and Senate no matter what. The polling data makes it reflect that she wouldn't be able to get the Senate. And if that's true, at the very least, even if Trump lost, she would have to work with Republicans. And I think the deficit would be enough for her to not be able to do much of anything. And so if she's just a dead president, that would be a wonderful outcome if for some reason she got elected or stole the election. Not that I believe that will happen. I don't want to comment about it. But because I don't want to get censored by YouTubes. But yeah, I mean, maybe that could happen. Who knows? Vivek's making statements that seem kind of like that.
There were estimates of 100 million people watching. At the same time, it's such a privilege to do things like this, but you're getting people are, leading up to it, or is he going to fact check you every time?
Brew Tank says, damn it, I'm nervous too. I am, dude. If you're not nervous right now, you don't give a fuck about America. That's the way I look at it. Brute says, let's fucking go, though. Silas, if she does well, the USA will have a lost generation. I hope not. I still hope that if she does well, her policies are so stupid and she mismanages things so quickly that eventually the mainstream media has to turn on her. And then we look at finding another candidate. You got to remember, Britain's had like 4 prime ministers in the last 2.5 years. Maybe we start to turn into a banana republic type state where all of a sudden we start replacing people. But if we replaced her with like a Robert F. Kennedy or even, again, Trump or any of these just wonderful people, it would be a vast improvement over her. So I don't know. I'm still hopeful that no matter what, there are options. But we need Trump to win. So we need to get our voices out there as much as we can. There's a reason I'm doing this. I don't even like politics. I don't want to be here, but I am because I want to save the country.
Darned if you do, darned if you don't.
I think the way to deal with that is to ask follow-up questions, make sure you're getting answers to the questions that you ask.
It's also a question for the candidates, and there is a question of how much tonight is...
Can Kamala answer a question? You guys saw that. Well, not 41-minute videos. You saw the 18 minutes that they published for Kamala Harris where she had Matt Waltz sitting next to her. And he basically said, yeah, I like to steal valor. And then she tried to avoid all the questions that were asked, even getting multiple choice questions and still not answering them, but eventually having to answer a few. And again, we don't even know what she said for the other, 23 minutes that were not published. So they could have been really fucking stupid answers, right?
As we bring it back to what we're going to see in just about 11 minutes from now is how much will Vice President Harris fact check former President Trump and vice versa, although it is clear, we know from past debates that the former president does say things that are not true on this stage. I've talked to people in her orbit who say if she...
The former president says things that are not true. Really? What about Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris literally tells you that she's against or that she hates fracking and that it's horrific. And then she says she's for it all of a sudden when she realizes where the numbers pull because we need more energy. Will she do it? I doubt it. But she says that. And then she called the border wall racist. She said that she would never support it. She said that it was a horrible idea. And then she became the border czar and didn't do anything with it and actually undermined everything that was going on previously to try and keep illegal immigrants out. And now all of a sudden she's playing videos where like it's showing portions of the border wall that Trump built, but she's trying to make it sound like she's tough on the border because she's been this prosecuting attorney. And the only thing she really fucking prosecuted were a bunch of people that smoked dope. And she put them away for huge periods of their life. And I think that actually is a really horrific thing to do, especially to the black community, when the vast majority of people in prisons are black, and a lot of them are there for low-end drug-related crimes with things like marijuana. It doesn't make a bit of fucking sense. And then there's people that literally were innocent and you knew they were innocent and you were going to let them die on death row, but then the facts eventually came out and it proved that they were innocent and that you were withholding information that could save their life. And then all you do is just say, whoops, my bad. I don't know, man. You sound like a shitty person and a shitty person to have run the United States. And again, and I think you might lie too, right? You might be a bad person, Kamala Harris.
She spent the night fact-checking, in their view. She'd never get anything else in. So she's got to pick her moments in that space. We're also seeing, even as we've been on the air tonight, former President Trump already, his campaign, his team, kind of working the refs here already, preemptively going after the moderators. It's always a fact-check.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's not terribly recent, but I remember it's in the last 10, 15 years, it's become a lot.
So Ratbane says, I really dislike Tim Walz too. I'm from Minnesota, and what happened with the riots in 2020 and he allowed to happen over there. He literally, that piece of shit, yeah, over 1,500 businesses were destroyed in Minneapolis. That piece of shit literally told the mayor that, nope, we're not going to bring in the National Guard. They're just a bunch of inexperienced people anyway. His daughter started messaging out to her friends on social media, I believe it was Facebook, letting people know that, hey, the National Guard's not going to be there tonight. You guys can do whatever you want to do. And then his wife commented about how they left the windows open so they could smell the burning buildings and tires. That's fucking Tim Walz, when he's not stealing other people's valor and pretending like he's been deployed overseas when he never fucking was. He's talking about putting tampons in men's boys' bathrooms for high schools, and he's doing shit like this. So, I mean, that's Tim Walz. What a wonderful fucking person Tim Walz is. What a great person to choose as a VP. Somebody who literally went to China 30 fucking times, had his honeymoon there, had it in Tiananmen Square, had it in a place where people got fucking slaughtered, and has taught Marxist ideology as well. Just like Kamala Harris's father, who taught at Stanford, he taught Marxist economics, which is basically communism. Okay, it's communism. That's what Marxism is. Okay, this is just the financial version of the communism. That's how she was raised. And then Tim Walz is just like that. And he's all for the Free Palestine riots. And these colleges that are doing these, if you look in the pamphlets and things they're handing out, deal with socialism and communism being good, and how America bad because of capitalism and billionaires, and how what we really need is Marxism. That's the stuff that they're pushing out. The party is literally a party of Marxism and communism. If you don't know this, you need to know this.
A lot more common to attack the moderator. I remember when you would never see the candidates go out and go after the moderator. I remember Newt Gingrich doing it in a Republican primary, I think in 2016 or something like that, and that was different.
Well, two things. You've got to feel the room.
Well, if the moderator is literally biased and not asking the right questions, and then literally being aggressive towards you but being nice towards the other person, then yeah, you call them out, right?
It took me several minutes to feel the room, feel the temperature of the candidates. The other thing is, having done a lot of debates, including
only 5 minutes, guys.
A long time ago, I would never
only 5 minutes.
Judge
it's happening. I'm
going
to zoom forward.
And in the critical battleground states.
So let's go back to the debate hall in Philadelphia.
5
the
minutes.
Spin room. Tom Yamas is there. We're just about 6 minutes away now from the start of this debate, which we will carry in its entirety.
This can
Tom,
have
are you starting
epic.
to feel that buzz of energy?
Again, I'm going to just mute here for a second. I've got Bitcoin sitting right underneath of us, guys. You can kind of see where the red and green lines are. We're dipping a little bit towards the red side. I'm trying to see if we end up. I need to probably make these even length. I'm trying to see. I'm just going to bring this up a little bit here. I'm trying to see where we end up when all this is over, right? Do we end up more red or green? Because I think Bitcoin's going to be a barometer. If we're pumping and we're green, it's because of Donald Trump. That's my belief, right? So I'm just going to put this up here. We're going to call this Donald Trump is winning. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Down here, we're going to do Kamala is winning. And so this is what I believe, right? This is what I believe. It's going to be one way or the other. And we're going to see this go up or down. And it's going to do it based upon whoever is winning the debate, or people's perception of the debate within the crypto community, right? That's another thing. Or within the business community, I should say. So we're watching that because we want to see who's going to win. And I'm actually going to stretch this out and increase the font for anybody else who wants to be able to read it. 1 second here. Let me see. Let's go to, oh, that's all we can do, huh? 40? Fuck that. Whatever. We'll stick with it. Let me get the sound back here. But yeah, so watch below. I think this thing's a barometer for sure.
A lot of sources that are familiar with her debate preparations are how she's going to differentiate herself from President Biden. Former President Trump is going to try to make her own every single mistake that he believes President Biden made. And there's been a lot of tension among the Harris team.
I'm going to hit the bathroom
she
super
should
quick.
Throw the President Biden, under the bus figuratively and say, I disagreed with some of the policies, maybe even the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the way that it was carried out, or whether she's going to say, I serve at the pleasure of the president and I agreed with everything that he did. But she has to, in some ways, really carve out what Harris administration is going to look like and why it's not going to just be a third term of the Biden administration, or the second term of the Biden administration, rather. And the other thing that she's really going to have to do is not get pulled into personal attacks by former President Trump. They expect him to, at some point, maybe lose it. They're going to try to bait him a bit to try to lash out at her. But she really wants to remain calm, because her biggest thing that she wants to do is really introduce herself to undecided voters and voters who might not be familiar with her background, her middle-class background, that she's a child of immigrants. They really want her team really make sure that she defines herself. So that's also a big challenge that I'll be watching for, how she does that. Back to you.
All right, Amish, thank you so much. And let's turn now to NBC's Dasha Burns, who covers the Trump campaign and joins us now. What are you hearing from the Trump campaign about the preparations tonight?
All right, guys.
Well, look, Savannah, you've heard the former president say time and again that he does not do traditional debate prep, that campaigning is his prep. But we are told by sources that over the last few days, he has been hunkered down at Mar-a-Lago. He's been doing extensive policy sessions.
Good.
And watch for him to do two things tonight, two things that his campaign wants him to do. Number one, tie Vice President Harris to President Biden, make her own what's going on with the economy, what's going on with immigration. And number two, remind voters some of the positions she took back in 2020 when she was running for president that were left of center. Try to paint her as simply too liberal for those moderate swing voters in places like
Melissa, this is Bitcoin on Coinbase right now. So that's how Bitcoin works. It trades 24/7.
bait the former president into an outburst. Savannah.
All right, Dasha, thank you.
Let's bring back Kristen Welker and Hallie Jackson. I want to talk about how the vice president has
NBC
cast
sucks,
herself in
but
this campaign.
I want the left.
prosecutor.
Here's the deal. I want the leftist spin too. You're going to get my take, which is very much going to be on the right. So I want to be able to speak to what they're speaking to, so that we have some concept and we're not living in a bubble. You'll get my view. Don't worry about that.
Tonight is getting specific, but not too specific. She's got to tell the story of how a Harris administration would differ from a Biden administration. That word we keep using, change. How would she change things right now? Does she acknowledge to some extent that the economy is not where she wants it to be, and really lay out in more detail what she wants to see? Yes, she's going to prosecute the case against Donald Trump on a range of different issues. She'll accuse him of switching his opinion, particularly when it comes to the issue of abortion and reproductive rights. But again, she's got to walk that
We're
fine
literally
line.
there, guys. It's happening. It's going to be happening.
For some changes in her own positions. Of course, she ran for president in 2020. She came across and positioned herself as a much more progressive type of candidate. Now she's really moving to the middle here in a general election.
Crowded primary, right? Back in 2019, 2020, she has moved away from that on issues like, for example, mandated gun buybacks for automatic rifles, something that she no longer supports. Fracking, for example, something that she has changed her position on as well. You look at Medicare for all, a position that...
Does she no longer support them, or is she literally saying whatever it takes to get votes? Because Bernie Sanders made it sound like she's saying whatever it takes to get votes.
That she's backed away from. Watch for the former president to try to go after some of these issues. And I'll tell you, to bring it back to the voters, that panel with Kate Snow is super interesting. The economy came up again and again. And even though this summer, for the first time, inflation dipped below 3% for the first time since March of 2021, people don't feel great about it right now. So how does Vice President Harris address that moving forward?
And let me briefly go there and talk about his physical performance. It's been noted by many that the former president has tended to be more rambling, disjointed in many of his answers at a time that we were focusing on Joe Biden. Is that something that folks will be watching carefully?
That's funny. They didn't have that opinion about Joe Biden previously, but they have that opinion about Trump right now. That's funny. It's fucking hilarious.
Now, of course, the older candidate now.
Okay. We will be back
he's the older
with you at
candidate
top of the hour now. 9 o'clock on the East Coast here in New York and in Philadelphia.
Of course.
The room where
I
it's about
suppose
to
that's
happen.
true.
We're just
But
seconds
she's
away
fucking
now
dumb, and
from
she's
tonight's
young.
First and perhaps last presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump.
As we've noted, this will be the first time these candidates have met in person, and it's happening on a debate stage. Also, the first debate since President Biden left the race over the summer and Harris became the Democratic nominee. A lot has happened in a very compressed period of time.
Yes, it has. And we have a few moments until the debate starts. We will join it. ABC News is broadcasting it, but we will simulcast it right here in its entirety. It's taking place at the National Constitution Center.
We're about in the midline,
in Philadelphia.
guys. We're getting close to the midline. We're down a little bit from where I started.
The candidates' microphones will be muted.
I'm
while the other
going
one
to
is
adjust
talking.
this.
Each candidate will get 2 minutes for answers.
be closer to like what the midline is at the start.
Statements. So we expect them to probably mix it up rather early in this as they stake out their positions and we get a sense of where all this is going.
We're starting.
And the mics are muted when the other is talking. So let's take you to Philadelphia now. And
on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of
This
tonight's
should be
debate.
happening right
90
now.
minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock.
Let's see how biased the questions are.
That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris elected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Oh, here we go. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to go on mute.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both.
Did she
It's
just say
wonderful to
her
have you. It's an
fucking
honor to have
name?
you both here tonight.
Good evening.
What the fuck
we
is
are
that?
looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them is...
I don't want to interject, but she's doing a speech like I did a speech. I dropped out of high school so that I didn't have to take speech class. This is the way I felt, the way she's projecting right now. That's my take.
Is small businesses. I was actually, my mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again, and even better.
We are going to get to immigration
He needs to talk
and
about the
border
financial
security
burden
during this
created
debate,
by illegal immigrants.
I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
I guess she can write out her notes.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025.
I hope they do.
Former
Oh,
president
God, how is she bringing this up in a debate? I can't believe this. That is not something she's smart to bring up at all.
That the American people
they should
want
fact check
a
that.
president
They
who
should fact check
understands
that.
the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together.
It's a 250-page
up with some
book,
ideas.
guys.
I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce-back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris,
nice. That was good.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you.
What?
And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse.
Literally a liberal bias company that probably has got some tie-in with the World Economic Forum. It's super fucking stupid.
First, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit.
Hopefully he's got a good
16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I didn't.
This is so insane. I'm sorry to interrupt. But literally, her plan is the one that we have to worry about with the recession. His is pro-growth. It's lower taxes. It's locking in its existing tax reduction. It's all these things that are really beneficial towards an economy. Hers is the exact opposite of that. It's tightening up business. It's taxing them more. It's killing job creators. It's everything that would be bad.
I invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. Just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to happen, who's going to have higher prices is China.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. Talk about companies coming back here, talking about your tax incentives for them.
And all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president
Bitcoin's
ever.
going up.
China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
Doesn't need to say in the history of the country.
The people of
like
our
the highest
country
inflation since the 70s is a big deal. 50 years is a big deal.
They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America.
That's because of the pandemic.
He invited trade wars.
Everybody was buying from China.
About his deal with
because
China,
they were locked in the fucking houses because Democrats wanted them to be.
Presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military.
Whatever.
Basically sold us out.
Obama
when
did that.
a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the...
Are you serious? Biden and Nancy Pelosi literally called this man racist for locking down because of COVID. What the fuck? What world are we in?
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country.
Come on, focus.
She's a Marxist.
Give us some data points.
Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
That's true.
Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country,
look she's got
and
going
when you
on.
look at these millions
Talk about your
and
Marxist
millions of
economist
people
father.
that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million
Say it's
people, not the
economically
15
will
that
destroy
people
us.
say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in.
A lot of the same talking points. He can do better.
To our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the
I think it should be at the state level.
And heart and
federal government should make all these decisions.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years.
Right.
Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest?
She was ready for
being
this question.
Being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that. And I pledge to you, When Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President.
He needs to talk about the fact that he's never endorsed that and talk about her flip-flopping on saying, yes, I'll do this. No, I don't want to do this. She's the flip-flopper. He's not the flip-flopper. He's not the person trying to change everything.
President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress.
I
Wonderful.
agree,
Let's go
Alex.
to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people.
He's literally the first person that was talking about doing IVF treatments for people that are trying to have babies.
Working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of
How has this become about abortion?
Americans
Our financial future and the world reserve status of our currency is in danger here, and we're talking about fucking abortion.
believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why
He needs to move it.
in every state where this issue has
Needs
been
to
on
move
the
the
ballot, in
conversation.
red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
Move on,
and the
though.
other thing,
Talk about the important
they-
things, the economy,
You should
illegal
ask.
immigration.
will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Talk about your energy policies.
Okay, would you do that?
Don't get hung up here. She wants you here.
That's the problem.
Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
Yeah, none of this stuff is happening the way I've understood it.
Thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to
Republicans,
Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President
Bitcoin
Biden
is not
with
liking
getting to
this.
the
It
root
thinks Kamala's
causes of
winning.
migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now.
They stripped away everything and allowed illegal immigrants to come in.
It would have
3.5
allowed
years.
us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many.
And then in the 11th hour, we could have made it all better.
Families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more
acting like the
resources
good guy
to
on
allow us
fentanyl
to
and illegal
prosecute
immigration. Are you
transnational
serious?
criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing
No, Michael, this
a
is since the
problem.
beginning of the debate.
And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
Here's let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
She's fucking
That's
baiting
because
him.
people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and
they're
ABC News did
biased,
reach out to the city
and they're
manager
gonna
there.
keep
He
pulling
told
them
us
this way.
there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the
saying
city
their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney.
I hope he can come back.
And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense
This is
has
why
said
they
the
wanted one
nation,
debate.
the republic, would never survive.
She could
another
underperform all
Trump
before this. She could
term.
act like an idiot. She could get attacked.
And when we listen
and then she comes
to
out
this
like
kind
this.
of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Man. Talk about the economy. Talk about how you're going to make things better.
When I hear that, see, I'm a
Focus on
different kind of a
positive.
person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job. And they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants?
Yeah,
I know you believe that number is
why
much
I
higher.
wanted Vivek to be in here.
Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes. But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down.
If he was like
all over
J.D.
the world,
Vance,
except
this would be
here.
over.
Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof, and we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI
needs to
says
give actual
overall violent
numbers.
crime is actually
Give
coming down in this
actual
country.
numbers.
But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so
Fact check
rich.
that shit.
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of
J.D.
law
Vance is amazing.
and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the
She's literally the party that wants to defund the fucking police. Is this for real?
day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important
going
in
after
this
the
race.
feds.
It is important that we move
Oh, my
forward,
God.
that we turn the page on this same
needs to
old
fight this with
tired
actual
rhetoric
fact.
and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to
He
support
needs
our
to be
small
doing
businesses,
this, what
address
she's doing.
bringing down the price of groceries.
His plans are
But
great.
frankly, the American people are
damn.
exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal.
Yeah, he's on
and you saw
defensive.
that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization.
Good, Bitcoin
Never
man.
happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta
Has
and
either
Fani
one said a
Willis
single-
to,
Not really.
to the
It's just like,
Attorney
not
General
really.
of New
Nothing
York
that
and
matters.
the DA of
Nothing
New York.
about economics.
Every one of those cases, and then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found
They literally-
essentially guilty on the documents case.
It's
Now,
called
what happened in
lawfare.
my documents case?
They've
They
attacked
said,
him
oh, that's the
unfairly on
toughest
things
of
that
them
they
all.
don't go after anybody.
A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was
Yep.
thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country.
Happens
they
to
used
Elon
it
Musk.
to
Talk
try
about
and
other
win an
people besides
election.
yourself.
They're fake cases.
President Trump,
It'll
thank you.
help.
A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Talk
Well,
about Elon
let's
Musk
talk
too,
about
Trump.
extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand
Such
what it would
bullshit.
mean if
This is
Donald
such
Trump were back in
bullshit.
the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court
The
won't stop
military
him. We
loves
know
Trump.
J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Weaponized, please.
We gotta
This is the
continue
one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy
President
with a fake
Trump.
Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you
They're
said
so
you wanted to
biased,
ban
it's ridiculous.
fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing
Finally,
border
something against
crossings.
her.
Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so
Why do
many
you
of your
completely
policy
flip-flop
positions
from one
changed?
side to the other?
So My values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking, because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States.
What about all the other times you said you were going to?
I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody...
What the fuck? This lady was born a multimillionaire.
Got handed $400 million on a silver platter
she was
and
rich.
then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
She was rich as fuck.
Is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes.
How? Trump should ask her how. Ask her how.
By the end of my first term. My work
ask her how.
That is related to
ask her, Trump.
Having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my
Are we
focus
going back to
then
abortion?
On protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work
ask her
that
how
is
she's
about
creating 3
protecting
million
Social
homes.
Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. Yeah. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating
I literally
people
have Bitcoin on
down.
the screen right now.
And name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. Good. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
All right,
so
keep going.
We don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now.
Yeah. There you go.
If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison.
Fuck that. Don't
this
focus
is a
on
radical left liberal that would do
Focus
this.
on the economy.
She wants
Focus
to
on your energy
confiscate
policy.
guns,
Talk about the
and
things
she will
you're
never
doing.
allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof.
on you
They
going
immediately
forward.
let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant?
On
By
what
the way,
you're gonna
I'm a
do.
big fan of solar. But they take 400,
President
500
Trump.
acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them.
He's not taking any of the
country and
easy
the world
wins.
saw what played out of the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television.
This is so
off
fucking
the Oval
loaded
Office.
against him.
You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there
Pelosi
anything
could have
you
had the guard
regret
there
about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world,
She
David.
got under his skin out of the gate.
The world.
I wish J.D.
And
Vance was
crime
doing
rates
this.
are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle?
Those are good points.
They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
Guard.
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker
that.
Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
Why does she respond about this question?
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
Oh, fuck this.
I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital.
How did he incite them?
To desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured.
How did he incite them?
And some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches.
Is she really going to do this?
Spewing anti-Semitic hate.
Is she going to lie about this?
And what did the president at the time say?
She's a good actor.
There were fine people on each side.
Well, how is she using this against him right now?
That when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia.
This is insane. He should say exactly what he
The former
said.
president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you.
Come on, Trump.
To stand.
Bring it back.
For country. To stand for our
over.
democracy. To stand for rule of law. And to end the chaos. And to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy.
It's such a lie.
Because you don't
Why don't they call her out for this?
And be clear.
Why don't they fucking
on
call
that
her out
point.
for this lie?
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the
This is
outcome of this
also
election
taken out of
is not to his
context.
liking.
How is this possible?
Let's
how
turn
does,
the
how
page
does
on
NBC
this. Let's
not
go
say
back.
something about this?
Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
You should call out the fact checking.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham,
Yeah,
Sean
why aren't the
Hannity,
fact checkers saying
Jesse,
that?
all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up.
Yes, this
I
is
ask
good.
you this.
This
You
is
talk
good. Call
about
the bullshit.
the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills.
They have the ability to do
They
it.
have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him
That's
up
true.
at 4
Yeah,
o'clock
call
in
the
the
shit out.
afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do
Yeah.
is say it to the Border
Yeah.
Patrol, who are
Fuck
phenomenal.
yeah, call the shit
if
out.
they do
Good
that,
job.
the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight.
Good
I do
call.
want
That
to
was
focus
getting better.
on
That's
this
getting
next issue
better.
to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President,
Oh, are
for
we gonna
3.5
talk about
years
censorship now?
after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures
Yeah,
for approval.
agreed. He's getting better.
I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as
Talk about the
fraudulent.
fact,
We need two
voter
things. We
IDs.
need
Talk about
walls.
election integrity.
We need-
Talk about the
and
SAVE
we have
Act.
to have it. We have to have borders. And we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad.
Yes,
and
focus
a
on
lot
the
of
details.
these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even
I
speak
know, I
English.
agree.
They don't even
They're
know
loaded.
what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and
Fuck
you know
you.
this, you and your
Your
allies, 60
interpretation of
cases
sarcasm
in
is
front of
fact.
many judges, many of them
No judge
Republican,
looked at it.
and said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have
Yeah,
you
he
do a
is.
special on it, I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right
Good.
now
Getting better.
is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation
Talk about
that
the
is
Unity Party.
dying, David.
Talk about
Mr.
positive
President,
shit.
thank you. Vice President Harris,
Talk about what
you
you're
heard the
gonna do.
president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
Why the fuck are you
but
saying
I do want to
this?
ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote.
Yeah, this is the
Is
last
that what
debate.
you believe he's
This
trying
isn't
to do
even
here?
a debate. This is 100% lopsided.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we
Yeah, talk about
cannot
all the other
afford to have a
stuff.
president
He's
of
getting
the
hooked
United
into this.
States who
They're baiting him, all of
attempts,
them.
as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair
She
election.
probably did.
And I'm going to tell you that
She probably did
have
get these
traveled
questions.
the world
I
as
agree.
Vice President of the United States.
I don't doubt that at all.
And world leaders are
don't doubt
laughing
it.
at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way
This is a
in
totally
a
rigged
presidential
debate.
and deny what over and
upsetting.
over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election.
I
It
agree.
leads
She
one
got the
to
questions.
believe that perhaps
She has her
we
answers
do
are
not
too well
have in
configured.
the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the
Now,
American people deserve better.
She's trying to paint it like she's the party of truth and that he doesn't. Oh, this is ripe for censorship in the future.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
I don't know, WizKid.
They were
I hope
afraid
they
of him.
don't, 'cause
China
this
was
isn't going
afraid,
good for
and
him.
I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was
I thought they
afraid of
couldn't
him.
do no's.
Look at
There's
what's
so much
going
going
on
on
with
I don't
North Korea, by the
understand
way.
right now.
He said Russia was afraid of him.
I feel bad for America,
I ended
too,
the
Tito.
Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline.
That would benefit
XL
the United
pipeline
States.
in
Talk
our
about your
country,
energy policy.
He ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany,
Yeah,
the biggest pipeline
no
in the world.
fact checking at all.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak,
there was no war with
pathetic
Russia.
man that you saw
No
at a
failure in
debate just a few
Afghanistan.
months ago, that if he
No
weren't
Hamas
in that
attacking
debate,
Israel.
he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes.
Charlie
They
Cook is
threw him
brilliant.
out.
Yeah.
She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I think
up.
we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to
That could've
the
went so much
Israel-Hamas
better.
war and the hostages who are
This could've
still
went so
being
much
held,
better.
Americans among them. Vice
I
President
hope it
Harris, in
comes back.
December, you said,
I
quote,
do.
Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law
I hope
must be
people
respected. Israel must
ignore
do
the
more to
debate
protect
and vote
innocent
on policy
civilians.
and
You said
understand
that
how
9
bad her
months ago.
policies
Now
are.
an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not
She didn't even show up when Netanyahu spoke in the U.S. She didn't even fucking show up.
been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely,
Children
I said then, I say
burned
now, Israel
alive.
has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many
True,
innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out.
I think she'll get a
And so
bump
we will
from
continue to
this.
work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must
need the unity
chart a
team
course for a
fighting her
two-state solution.
everywhere.
And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always
probably
give
right,
Israel
Chris.
the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the
Bitcoin's
hostages
dropping
out
again.
and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, and far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet
with Netanyahu when
Yes.
he went to Congress
Yes.
to make a very important
Yes.
speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel.
Yes.
If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror.
Getting
they
better,
were broke.
Donnie.
Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing
Nailed
is
this
they're
bitch.
spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
This is getting better.
That's
This is better.
absolutely not true. I have my entire
Why didn't you
career
show
and
up?
life supported Israel and the Israeli people.
Why didn't you show
he
up
knows
when
that
Netanyahu
he's
came?
trying to, again, divide and distract
Ask a
from the
follow-up
reality,
question.
which is it is very well known
Such bullshit.
that Donald Trump is
Fucking
weak
reporters
and
are
wrong
assholes.
on national security and foreign policy.
What?
It is well known.
Weak on national security and foreign policy. That is the last thing I would describe Trump with, even when I was voting for Biden. How the fuck is she saying
That
this?
he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known
How is that according to
he
himself?
said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Love letters.
And it
What
is
the fuck is that?
absolutely well known.
Are we going to
that
fact
these
check the love
dictators
letters
and
to Kim
autocrats are
Jong-un?
rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that
Why don't they
we
call
have
any of
to
this
have
shit
a
out?
president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent.
They are.
And I just ask one question.
We're getting
Why
ready
does
to
Biden
escalate with
go in
Russia.
and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here.
Oh, this has been painful to watch. I'm not going to lie. I feel like Trump is definitely on the defensive here. I don't love it. Kamala is attacking him on being weak on the national security and foreign policy. I mean, hopefully this gets better. Look at this. Oh, wait, what are these notes? Let's just... Trump pushes baseless claim about immigrants eating pets. This is what we're doing in the middle of the debate, guys. Former President Trump, during Tuesday's presidential debate, pushed baseless claim about Haitians eating dogs and other pets. This is insane. California officials say mom pushed for DUI laws was drunk, unconscious, with dead toddler inside SUV. Wait a second. Why the fuck are we talking about that? What is this interlude supposed to be? Father of an 11-year-old killed in crash says Trump and Vance are using son as a political tool. This intermission is literally meant to attack Trump. How fucking insane is this? What do you guys think about this? Trans lawmaker in Congress. This is just so fucking biased. This news right here is so twisted and one-sided. It's fucking insane. This is insane. This is all like pro-woke left. 2 key inflation reports this week will help decide if the Fed cuts interest rates. Is there anything in... Oh, hey, nothing in there that's negative Donald Trump. Amazing. I'm going to speed this up. What bullshit. Republican Joe Wilson of South Carolina in the hospital after collapse. Okay, great. Nothing. Thank you for that. Longtime rep Joe Wilson. You think this would be a great time to fact check everything that was said by both candidates? This is such bullshit. What the fuck are we actually doing right now? Yeah, and no comments. You're right. There's like a handful on here. All in Summit, my Super Bowl. I don't even know what we're doing for the next minute and 50 seconds, guys. This is fucking insane. I do think, though, it literally seems like Kamala Harris, for the first time in her career, has perfect answers for every question that's coming up. That seems a little shocking, but how do you prove that? How do you prove that at all? And I think Trump is getting too defensive. There's a couple of good swings that he was taking, but he needs to be focusing on his vision. He hasn't said anything about reducing energy by 51% and to counter inflation. He hasn't said anything about extending his tax breaks and increase in the other tax incentives that he's going to have for business. He needs to focus on getting back to his vision of the future, and not just get stuck in conversations about abortion and all this other bullshit. These are not the primary issues for the United States right now. The primary issues are our economy, the unsustainable amount of illegal immigration that we have coming in, the fact that we're not going to be able to afford it, the fact that it'll bankrupt us, and the fact that she's looking to pass 3 different major tax bills that would be destructive towards our economy and actually send it into a depression, most likely. And that's just not just me saying that. Even Mark Cuban, a hardcore liberal left dude who loves Kamala Harris, said that she told their group that if they did the unrealized capital gains, she would crash the stock market. And some other commentators have said destroy the stock market. Worse than the Great Depression.
Every weeknight, it's your news.
So we got 5 seconds. Let's see what shit show we come back to.
Top story with Tom Yamas.
This is so biased. There's not even... If you're going to have 2 people questioning there, why isn't one person pro-Trump and one person pro-Kamala?
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
Why are they both on the left?
When it ends in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis of tonight's key moments.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala
Sorry,
Harris
trying to see if I can get
Donald
ahead.
Trump.
When it ends in just a few minutes, join us for an analysis
so annoying.
of tonight's key moments. Our team
Getting a
will
little
break
bounce
down
in
how
Bitcoin,
it
but
could shake up the
I don't know,
final
man.
sprint to Election Day. For now, though, let's go back to the debate live in Philadelphia.
Oh, let's see how much more painful this is
Live
going
from
to
the
get.
National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay
Blue
Davis.
State, Blue
Welcome back to
Company,
this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight.
Blue
We're gonna continue
reporters.
Here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years
This is
into this
bullshit.
conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin.
This
defend
one
their
he might be
sovereignty,
able to
their
win.
democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further
No.
into other countries. You
Putin
have
is
said you would solve
destroyed.
this war in 24
This
hours.
has
You
not
said
worked
so
out
just
well
before
for
the
him.
break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers
On
that
both
you're getting, which
sides,
are
yeah.
fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds
just
of
focus on
billions
that.
of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons.
He's kind of reverting back to a lot of his old
weak
sayings, and he needs to have new stuff.
You take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know.
Don't focus
is he
on
our
Biden.
President? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest
the economic
for Ukraine
club
to
was
win this
so
war?
good,
Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
And if Ukraine wins, that means we're going to probably nuclear war with Russia, and we could destroy the entire fucking world. I mean, that's frightening.
And because of our support, because of
we need somebody who's going to negotiate an end.
The ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president.
All these things
and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO.
Oh, we're so fucked
and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that.
Right now, we're getting ready to give them the ability to have long-range weapons against Russia.
Maybe he hasn't been that threatening,
Jesus,
but
fuck.
he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
That's good.
Because everything they said was weak and stupid.
Good job, Charles.
They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate.
God,
you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from
this
this fella.
is so biased.
And that is
dude.
another one.
This is insane.
When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
She said
the
that
reality is
Kim
it has
Jong-un
been
was sending
about
love letters
standing
to
as America
Trump. We say
always
nothing.
should. As
But
a
this.
leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent
I hear you, Alex.
on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring
She's really
about
pushing this
democracy.
point, and it's just not a
And
good
that
narrative.
is
He needs to
very
fight
much
it.
what is at stake here. The President of the United States
Now
is
she's trying to make him
commander in
look like a
chief.
dictator.
And the
Oh, my
American
God.
people have a right to rely
This is a bummer.
on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
What the fuck do you have to say about this?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength
to the people that
and the
fucking died
respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left.
Talk about those
we
fallen
wouldn't have left
soldiers and the fact that they didn't even show up.
$85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, 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 and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Why are we not
ask a
talking
bigger
about
picture
fucking
question here
policies?
Tonight. Why do you believe it's
Why the fuck
appropriate
are we
to
not
weigh
talking
in
about
on the racial
policies?
identity
Why are these
of your
questions
opponent?
not about what we're going to do for this fucking country?
I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out. And
oh, my God.
I'll say that. And then I read that she was black.
And
that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
They're fucking trash.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started.
This bitch, literally everything is race.
Land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families.
Oh my God!
Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
I hope nobody cares about
we don't
this.
want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their
this
fingers
is just
at
so
each
fucking
other.
biased.
I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about...
She literally has perfect answers for every fucking question they give. They're not asking anything about policy. 90% of this is just attacking Trump. January 16th, whatever else. And then the Afghanistan stuff, again, all these questions are loaded. They're all made. She's prepared for everything. Everything.
How we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people. knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden.
Hung up.
And I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Oh, God.
One who believes in what is possible.
Price controls, unrealized capital gains, corporate taxes,
about what we can
increases
do
in everything. We're all fucked. The investment scene in America is fucked tonight. If this woman wins power, we're fucked. The country could be fucked if she gets the House and the Senate. We'll never be a free nation again. That's the way I look at it.
Our plans, and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction. To pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life,
Trump
to help
came
you
up a week
in that
later.
Most critical stage of your child's development.
Amazing.
I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
That would just increase the price of houses by $25,000 instantly and make them less affordable.
Tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
Thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan to not allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay,
that's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to respond because the former president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care. Always was. It's not
Talk
very
about what
good
your
today.
plan is.
And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't
really
vote to change it.
From J.D.
If they would have done that, we would have had a much
debate.
better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote
hope,
for
though.
it.
J.D. Vance
I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it.
Shockingly
but
bad.
Until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that.
Don't get stuck in this.
And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Say what's her plan.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system.
There we go. She wants to
2 years
nationalize
later, you
health
proposed
care.
a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point.
We're not going to answer the
that
question.
the former
She's not
president
gonna
has
answer
made.
it.
I've made very clear my
Motherfucker.
position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
What bullshit.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at
They
the
totally
history
wanna
to know
take
where
guns
people
away.
stand.
They
When
do.
Donald Trump was president,
Oh, my God.
60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma,
so prepared for
if
this
someone was a
debate.
breast cancer survivor,
Like,
if a
perfectly
grandparent
prepared
had
for all these
diabetes.
questions. Perfectly.
And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of
This is
you,
bullshit.
the
She's
American
gonna take
people.
credit for that
Donald Trump
fucking-
said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate
Oh, my God.
drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month.
Literally
Since
something
I've
he
been
was
vice
doing.
president,
This is
we
what
have
he was
capped the
doing.
cost of
He did
prescription
this.
medication for seniors at $2,000
This is
a year.
insane.
And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass this
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made
of...
a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money.
But
But
she won't
she
hasn't
won't
covered
improve
like
private
anything with his energy
insurance for
policy,
people, private
anything with her
medical
taxes,
insurance.
anything for what
That's
he's going
another
to do
thing
with
she doesn't want to
taxes.
give.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money,
How
and they
are we
want to have
not
private.
talking
She
more
wants
about
everybody to
the
be on
financial
government
impact of
insurance
illegal
where you
immigration?
wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water.
Help
Vice
companies like
President Harris,
Tesla
you call
excel
climate
and
change
succeed.
an
That
existential
will help
threat.
climate change.
The question to you both tonight is, what would you
Instead of
do
attacking
to
them with
fight
lawfare
climate
like you
change?
do
And
Trump.
Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced
lying
these
really good.
extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance
She's
or
real
is
good
being
at lying.
jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs.
Open them
he lost
here.
manufacturing jobs.
Open them
and I'm
here.
also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he?
Unions.
Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia.
I hope the closing statements are good, because this is literally 3-on-1, which seems to be a lot of the response that we're seeing right now on X. It's just a ridiculous, ridiculous thing. But I got to say, they're getting under his skin. Trump needs to focus. He needs to focus his energy on, he hasn't said anything about his energy plans, about the fact that he's looking to reduce energy costs by 51%. And he should say, I'm looking to do this. What is Kamala Harris going to do to limit the prices of energy? Is she going to drop it by 51%? There's so many other things that we could be focusing on in regard to data points, and I hope we start getting around to them. In his final statement, I hope he starts bringing something up, because this is just, it's super biased. It literally seems like she got the questions ahead of time. It literally does. And all of her answers are perfect for it. And again, the only fact checking that's happening is happening on one side of the aisle. This is just fucking nuts. This is so biased and disgusting right now. It angers me. And then in between, we get to learn about the first trans lawmaker in Congress. It's just like, the bias in all of this is so fucking ridiculous. Do we have any more Trump back checks in between here for the next 3 minutes? Do we have any more jabs we want to take at Donald Trump real quick? He hasn't even done drill, baby, drill. Yeah. He just didn't prepare well, and she did her job. Yeah, I mean, I don't think she just did her job, man. It's like fucking perfect. It's like the best fucking case scenario for her. She literally has a perfect answer for everything they brought up. I've been watching this woman on the campaign trail and in interviews. It's almost like they set him up. It's almost like hey, let's have you giggle, let's have you attack you for these things. Then we'll load it up. We'll make sure that you have the questions ahead of time. You'll be nice and pre-recorded. You can do a really good job. You've been a prosecuting attorney. We'll get this out there, and we'll make you look like you're in control of the entire conversation. And that's what's happening. And it's frankly disturbing to me right now, because I don't want to see this woman win. She will destroy America. Especially if she got the House and Senate. I can't think about what this country would look like and what the world will look like in the next 4 years. It is frightening to me, and I'm hoping in the last 2 minutes we get something here from Trump where he can really focus his energy. And if we don't, I don't know. I don't have hope for America. I don't have hope for the stock market. I think a lot of people are going to lose money and it'll be devastating to the U.S. We have 130% debt to GDP. If we implement policies that start taxing people with over $100 million, basically every large corporation that's out there, and all the owners of them, to where they have to start taking out loans against their stock or selling their stock and diluting their share of the company in order to be able to run the business, you're going to see massive margin compression. You're going to see so many problems in the stock market. Again, even Mark Cuban said that the policies that she wants to implement, the Marxist policies, the same things that she learned from her father who taught at Stanford, would destroy this country. And I strongly believe that's true. And it's frightening to see how close we might be coming to that. All I can hope for is that we get some good spin, because we need it. And we got 58 seconds left here. And I hope we get good spin. We're desperately going to need it. And then I hope the VP debate, I hope some people do listen to it, because I think I watched the last VP debate, and I would love to see J.D. Vance tear Matt Waltz apart, and have people go, maybe this is the counterforce with Trump that we need, and the right person to be in the VP position. And maybe this counters the bullshit that Kamala Harris can spew for lies and get away with. Trump pushes, again, baseless claims about eating immigrants, eating pets. Again, I've got videos where these guys are grabbing animals. I can show you. Maybe I'll show tomorrow in the next political thing, where these guys are grabbing animals and walking off with them in fucking parks in places like Springfield and other parts of the country. It's fucking real. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right, here we go. We're going back to it.
News for the generation of now.
What do you guys think?
NBC
Those are my
News
thoughts.
Now.
I'm disappointed and I'm frightened about the future.
We're back with tonight's debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
And when it ends, please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments. Our team will break it down as we enter the final sprint to election day. We'll go back to the debate and closing statements.
Live from the National
There is no
Constitution
bait.
Center
This is a
in
3-1
Philadelphia,
debate.
Pennsylvania.
There's no bait.
Here again,
Kamala, there's no bait
David
for
Muir
Kamala to take.
and
This
Lindsay
is
Davis.
literally, everybody's on her
Welcome
side
back
here.
tonight. The time has
Except
come
for
for
Trump.
closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
I hope he's got a good closing statement.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us back.
Literally all the questions on here were focused on the fucking past. All the questions were focused on the past. Every one of them.
But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And
What, communism?
a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we
An
can do around
opportunity
protecting
economy.
seniors,
Jesus
what we
Christ.
can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay?
Well, who the fuck would ask that question?
And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution.
All right, fuck all that. I can't handle it anymore. So I'm very disappointed. I wish Trump would have done more. There's so many opportunities where he could have added more detail. I do think he's the right person for the job, but I'm sorry when your closing statement, when the other person talks about focusing on the future, and then you just rail on them for the things that they haven't done or haven't done well. You gotta bring up all the policies. Why wouldn't you say that you're going to reduce energy costs by 51% in your first year? That is such a huge positive. You could say that's the base cost for everything, for all goods, for all services. And by doing this, we're going to make it to where your prices come down for things, and where they'll be more affordable. Your energy costs, your gas bill, your electric bill, all these things you'll benefit from. And there's just so many other things that you could bring up that paint a positive future. We're going to get out of the wars that aren't needed. We'll get away from these. We'll save hundreds of billions of dollars by ending this war, by building relationships again between these countries, by leading them towards a more positive future. There's so many things that you can work with, and again, so many policies that they're doing. Nothing with taxes was really brought up at all. There's so much. This was a 3-1 debate. And I think it overwhelmed Trump. He wasn't ready for it. He used the same talking points that he's used on the campaign trail. It's like they just let him, speak on the campaign trail. Oh, hey, maybe he'll say the exact same things that he's always fucking said on the campaign trail, and we'll be prepped for him. I do feel like she actually got the questions ahead of time. I don't know how we would ever prove any of that, though, or if that even matters. But this is definitely, this sucks, and I think it takes Trump down a notch or two, and I don't want that fucking at all. I don't want that at all. It bums me the fuck out. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be saying these things right now. I'm hoping that the spin teams now will be able to help fix this. I can see on X that people are like, fuck it, I don't care. I hope that's right, guys. I hope people don't fucking care. I hope people don't look at the debate. I hope they still like Trump. I hope that, again, J.D. Vance, Robert F. Kennedy, Elon Musk, and a slew of others, Tulsi Gabbard, amongst others, can spin this in the right direction that it needs to be brought in, that can bring up the bias, that can get people to see the truth if they want to. Because we've got the money against us, guys. Right now, 70% of the money going to contributions is going to Democrats. So they're the winners right now. It's not like they're the party of war. They get all the money now. It's not like back in the day when Republicans were getting 80% of the money and Democrats were getting 20 many, many years ago. It's not that way anymore. So this sucks. I want it to get better. Let's see what happens. It's over. I don't know if I'm that bad off, Dead Toy. There's a lot of time until the election. That's what I'm holding on to, Ratbane, is that there's a lot of time, and they've got 7 weeks to spend this shit in the right direction, and I hope they can do it. We need to for America's sake, because if it doesn't work out and this lady gets into power, and God forbid she get the House and the Senate, we're fucked. I strongly believe they're coming after our guns. Tim Walz has made it very clear that there's a number of people. They want to start getting rid of assault rifles and everything else. It's one step at a time and erode away what people have. And if you can take away their weapons, then you can make it to where they can't rise up against you. And then you can complete your communist agenda. And she's made it very clear that she has one. And I wish that would have been spelled out in here too. Price controls, all the overburdening taxes, the censorship of free speech. How did we not talk about X? How did we not talk about like what happened in Brazil in the 2022 election? How did we not talk about her own fucking comments about censoring a sitting president and then also censoring X, shutting down X? How did we not talk about any of these fucking things? These matter. These matter. And so I'm hoping the spin can come back around and fill in the holes, because there were a lot of holes. Trump just basically did one of his speeches, and they got him, right? They got him because they got him pissed off right away. They basically, he doesn't like feeling like people are ganging up on him, and that's exactly what they did, and I don't think it turned out well tonight. So it sucks. But I'm hopeful. I'm continually hopeful that we can find the right path in this country. And so we'll just write this off as a biased fucking loss, where Kamala was super prepared for all the answers. And let's see if we can start clarifying the truth using X and using other forms of media in order to be able to let people know what's really happening and what she really stands for and what she'll bring for this country in the future. And let's work hard to try and get past this shit. But I cannot tell you that tonight was a win for Trump. I can't do that because it's not real. I won't lie to you. Anyway, I love you guys. I'm tired of shit. I want to get some rest. I'm just a little depressed by how the day ended here. So we'll figure this shit out. Let's take a look at it tomorrow, reevaluate, and see what people are thinking. I love you guys. Let's not have another 4 years of Democrats. Let's hope that we can bring this back around. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Okay. Peace out, everybody.